من محطة الطاقة الشمسية شمس بمدينة زايد وصولا إلى قصر ليوة، وكانت برعاية محطة شمس. المرحلة الثانية في جزيرة الحديريات بأبو ظبي مرحلة سباق السرعة لمسافة 12 كيلومتر برعاية تيودور. المرحلة الثالثة في رأس الخيمة وصولا إلى قمة جبل جيس لمسافة 179 كيلومتر، مرحلة جبلية برعاية هيئة رأس الخيمة للسياحة. المرحلة الرابعة الانطلاقة من الفجيرة من شاطئ قدفع إلى إمارة أم القيوين لمسافة 181 وهي المسافة الأطول برعاية طاقة. المرحلة الخامسة في دانة دنيا دبي الانطلاقة كانت من الجامعة إلى الجامعة، الانطلاقة كانت من الجامعة الأمريكية والانتهاء بجامعة حمدان بن محمد الذكية لمسافة 160 كيلومتر برعاية مجلس دبي الرياضي يوم أمس. وقبل أن أكمل هذه واحة أو هذا طبعا متحف العين مشاهدينا الكرام، وهو طبعا يقع قريب من الواحة، وهو من أقدم المتاحف في دولة الإمارات بجانب الحصن الشرقي بواحة العين. أسسه الشيخ زايد بن سلطان آل نهيان طيب الله ثراه، ويحافظ على الاكتشافات الأثرية بما في ذلك مقابر خلايا النحل التي تعود إلى عصر حفيد بالقرب من مزيد. افتتح المتحف في عام 1971 ويتكون من قسمين الأنثروغرافيا والآثار، ويسلط الضوء على التراث الثقافي لدولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة. ويضم
Solution Tech Vini Fantini out front. They've really swelled in terms of their numbers, and they've done a great job actually of just moderating the ambitions that may have been displayed by Bardiani. Tarozzi has got Zoncanello up front. Tarozzi, the only man who could have denied Duric that black jersey, but just to make sure that they don't start dreaming, Vini Fantini decided to coalesce around a much bigger group out front, just to make sure that nothing silly happens. And that's the scenario we've got at the moment. So UAE Tour Stage 7, we have a swollen group of 12, a dime a dozen up the front.
Yeah, it's a pretty decent group, and you have to doff your cap to Team Solution Tech Vini Fantini with Duric. That was a very active opening 20-25 kilometres, which has now settled down into this holding pattern. A minute and 18, they're continuing to build that lead as they head to the most northerly part of the circuit today before they head back down pretty much towards, they almost get back to the stadium that they started at before they then do another little loop before heading further west, as we were talking about earlier on. But this is a solid little group, a real mixed bag. But yeah, 3 riders here from Team Solution Tech. Remember, first 4 score points, but right now, for the first time, they're properly bedded in. It was quite fractious before, riders missing turns, and also because of how hard that these riders have had to go early on, to settle into a routine and into a rhythm is actually quite hard, because many riders are over into the red and they need to recuperate and recover, and quite often they're not purposefully trying to disrupt the break, they just need a rest before they can settle in. But now it has eased just enough for them to recover, get their heart rate down, get some food down, get some gels, and then settle into this this more even, sustainable rhythm now.
No flat top, elite bottle there, easy squeezy. The thinnest walled drinks bottles, by the way, belong to UAE Team Emirates. You'll see Tadej Pogacar giving one a squeeze. They're actually see-through, would you believe, and but with a pearl effect, which is little tiny bicycles.
Oh right,
yeah,
that's a nice detail.
It's a really beautiful design. I was very pleased to have one thrown at me. Matt's got an elite bottle as well, an elite flat top. Who'd have believed it?
I don't even know what brand it is, actually.
I believe I'm right.
Very nice, though.
Let me have a quick squeezy. Yes, so even softer sides than that. There we go.
More attacks.
Clearly, Turbo Durbo's having a dig here as well. The old the green and gold mate. He's just bedding himself in. Deko Alula. There is a change of direction, and of course it'll be a headwind that they come into rather soon, as we cut back towards the place that we started today. So there's going to be a bit more shenanigans here. Jaco really want to go deep here. There's 4 of them on this move.
Well, it's quite a big move to not have any representation. So I think that's where they've gone on the offensive. It's not a full-on crosswind here, and the only bit of crosswind that it's only for a short period of time. So they've got it's a tail crosswind, and then they loop. They do a hard left soon and head back into a block headwind for about 10 k's before they head back to the finish. But right now, it's the man who finished high up yesterday. Another great sprint by Max Walscheid yesterday. It was a flip-flop, wasn't it? We thought it was going to be Mezgec. We then thought it'd be Walscheid. He sprinted very well and is using that raw horsepower that he's got to try and force another team that don't have representation in front. Soudal Quickstep. Well, no, sorry, they're Bastion, so of course had in front. That's why they were shutting that down, should I say. So still a lot of teams eager to try and force something. But in a minute, when we get that change of direction, it might be mindful just to wait a bit and then go again and use your resource in the crosswinds when you really can cause a bit of a mess potentially.
Well, found out just a little bit here. They're hugging the left-hand side of the road. There is wind today, and it's going to be more of a challenge deeper into the day, isn't it?
It certainly is. And I'm just looking at the wind app that I've got. Very strong winds, about 25 kilometres an hour. So we basically head back down towards the stadium that the race started at. We then swing a hard right. We'll then get a crosswind again, but the crosswind will be ever so slightly in their face rather than the tailwind. We pass through the intermediate. We do a loop round, pass through the intermediate sprint, drop down again, and then there's a very open crosswind section in both.
Ilan ba yung nakakasaksak?
The Al Hilli Park, it looks quite flat, to be honest, despite its name.
It's pretty flat. There's hardly any climbing at all, as you can see on the opening kilometres of this race. In total, we've got 1,310 metres of elevation, and the vast majority of that, of course, is up to the top at Jebel Hafit, which itself is only 1,025 metres. So there's just some gentle rollers beforehand, but most of the climbing right at the very end. The riders won't even notice the gentle elevation elsewhere on this course, but it is, looking at the profile, flat as a pancake, and then a real kicker at the end up to a climb that pretty much all of these riders, most of these riders, have done before. A classic feature of the final stage of the UAE Tour, and a real stern test. The average gradient of the final climb only 6.6%, but given the opening kilometre is only about 5, and the closing couple of kilometres we have a descent before that flattish finish, the vast bulk of the climb is in excess of around 8%, so it is a steep climb, a far harder climb than the climb we had earlier this week.
Well, I was trying to find something on the Al Hilli Park. It just says it's a fun place for families with kids. I guess so. And apparently there's the Hilly Fun City we're coming up to.
Wow.
Yeah, can't wait. We're having our fun, especially with our break today, solidifying into a fighting force of a dozen. You're looking at them right now. Yes, it does include the green jersey. Their numbers may swell. Let's wait and see, shall we? Back to the car for Duric, the black jersey. Don't know what watchwords are going to be issued there. Zoncanello is Zanoncello. Apologies to his mum and dad and the rest of his ancestors. Yes, is up here for Bardiani. It's Tarozzi would have been their preferred foil for today, just to try and deny that black jersey, but it's not going to happen. I'm looking out beyond, and on this day, that haze is due to the wind. So it's picking up dust in the desert, which we're sort of heading out into, near desert anyway. And the wind is indeed causing a bit of a dust storm over onto the horizon, so it looks a bit hazy. And that's due to the wind that we've got today, and it seems to be stiffening. Look at the vegetation here.
Yeah, it's really blowy. They're heading in a moment into this headwind for a bit, so it'll be a little bit easier in the wheels. So harder on the front. The speed will just drop ever so slightly, of course, as they head into that headwind, but far easier on the wheel. There's not quite as much shelter when you're in a cross tailwind, and that's why we see splits occurring so relatively easily, because there just isn't the shelter, the draft effect that you get when you're in a headwind. But the two big favourite teams massing at the front. UAE there, all in colour order, and also just sat in second wheel. Let's see, one of Sam Welsford being so Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe are all in today for Finn Fisher Black. We him at top of the show. He knows it's going to be hard to beat Tadej Pogacar, but is definitely spying another podium spot in a World Tour race after his magnificent performance in Down Under. So Finn Fisher Black has really stepped up this year. He said he's in the form of his life. He's had wins already and really is maturing to be a fantastic all-rounder and a big GC contender. There he is, just in fourth, dropping back a little bit further, having a natter with his teammates.
Yeah, I'd love to see him go well, actually. He spoke this morning very eloquently about his chances. Peo Bilbao, when asked by Bahrain Victorious, said it was suggested that he's a specialist for this kind of day. Of course, he knows this climb as well, only too well. And Bahrain Victorious they haven't put anyone up front at the moment because their job is at the end of the day in support of Peo Bilbao. He could be a cheeky side bet for you today. Certainly very much worth keeping in mind. He's going to be one of the last five, I reckon, on that mountain.
Yeah, I think Bilbao, I mean, the thing is, when you look at the riders around him, despite his class, he's got to get past Giulio Ciccone, Jay Vine, Finn Fisher Black. Ivan Romeo and Josh Tarling might be slightly easier for him. We don't know. I think Romeo's going to ride well today. I think Tarling actually is going to ride well. Just hope is okay after that knock earlier on. That certainly, of course, isn't going to help anything.
Have a good day, guys. Thank you for watching, guys.
Do all he can. He's got nothing to lose today.
Shout out Idol Ricky.
And then see what happens at the end of the day. So he can ride with relative liberty. And what he is good at as well is riding in the crosswinds. He's got a lot of power, but it's so... Right now, it's not just about, it is about the finish climb, but there's a lot of potential disruption that could take place on the mid part of this race, heading to the climb. The run into the climb, actually, they will be into a block headwind. So it's just until about 30 k's to go, that section from the intermediate sprint till about 30, 40 k's to go, that is can be absolutely crucial. And that the wind is bang on the side. There's slight changes in direction of the road. East to west, west to east. But it's a long, sustained period of time, which is going to be exceptionally dangerous. And there could be potential splits.
Thank you for watching.
But yeah, just back to Bilbao, definitely one of the riders who I would say could wreak some havoc on the climb. Along with Van Eekveld as well. He's on the same time as Bilbao. Harold Tejada's had a great race too for XDS Astana. He sits in 9th at 41 seconds. And then Oscar Onley as well, backing him today. He rode really well the other day. Onley in 10th at 44.
Here's a showcase of traditional mud brick architecture. There we go. Didn't say when this one was built. It's now an art centre. But yeah, there is a rainy season. They gather the mud and indeed repair, which is why the castles look so immaculate, despite the fact some of them are sort of over 1,000 years old. They were built yesterday. And in a certain sense they were. We've come through a rainy period, so they're at their very best.
Fresh and pristine.
Yes, freshly resculpted.
Just like perpetually rendered, aren't they? Re-rendered.
Exactly. And it's lovely.
And then you get a gentle dusting of the sand that's in the air, just to finish it off very evenly.
Should we move here? You know, we can build our own place. We need a bucket and a trowel. Go for it.
I've never tried plastering. I wonder if I was actually given all the right tools
as a youngster.
Just to go out and say, look, Matt, okay, give it a go. Make yourself a little fort. How good it would be. I don't think it would be habitable, put it that way.
I think your first floor might become the ground floor very, very quickly. Khalid bin Walid Street is where we're turning into right now. I was trying to identify the bobbing blossom for you, which is why I've been away for a minute and a half. And I can't. I thought it was orange blossom, but that's white. And then I thought maybe it's lemon blossom. It's not that either. I believe it's a sort of a perfumed blossom that we have here. They have chamomile bushes here as well. And prairie grass flowers are amazing. They make tea out of them. But anyway, back to this. 2 minutes and 7. This is a proper break now.
Yeah, this is Su on the front, the Chinese rider for XDS Astana. Interesting that XDS Astana have decided to put somebody at the front. Remember, they've got no Igita, who left this race very early on, but Tejada will be their main man today. without a shadow of a doubt. Wonder what Schelling can do as well. On his day, he can be a pretty decent climber, but all about Tiada. Tiada's look very sharp, actually, as we get our second look of the day at the Hazza bin Zayed Stadium, because we're heading back towards there very shortly.
Also known as
The
souffle.
souffle, the sunken souffle.
but only in our minds.
But it's unofficial.
That's unofficial, but it's absolutely beautiful.
It's,
It's
I've
inspired
been
by
a couple of
palm
times.
tree trunk. There you go.
Yeah, I've been a couple of times when I was watching the start of this race. It's really impressive.
There's something going on, if I'm not mistaken. That's a crowd. Don't know
Oh, we're here.
who's training, but yeah, we're back.
It was quite a quick loop, wasn't it? We are motoring today.
Didn't hang around. Average speed today,
50.
51.7, nearly 52. How's about that? Yeah, we've already completed.
Fast, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if they scream into the bottom of the climb, which is carry on like this, they're certainly going to do. Then there may well be some tired legs, some tired support legs. Let's put it that way. At least in the early reaches of the test.
I know there'll be one or two riders, or one in particular, that will be more than happy with a sharp start. Not that there's any cobwebs to blow out of his engine, but the harder the better for Tadej Pogačar. So he'll be more than happy that the wind's blown. He'll be more than happy that there's been a lot of aggression. So the racing has been on, and it's on now. Although the gap has gone up to 2 minutes and 12 seconds. This gap is manageable, and I do think it will start to come down as we get towards the midsection of this race. I cannot stress it enough how much damage could be caused on this midsection as we round this rather magnificent stadium.
We do. It's a gorgeous stadium, I must admit. I do love the fact that it's so well shrouded because of its aspect. Meanwhile, some power for you.
Yeah, the power there, look, Curry and Bastions, the first 25k attack, both of them went well above 1,000 watts, and that would have been that initial acceleration to get across the gap. And then there's the average. 290 for Logan Curry because he's a far smaller rider, but Bastions, the bigger rider, punching a bigger hole in the air, therefore that takes more energy, has had to expend, to do the same speed, another 30 watts. But that's the way things work in terms of power to weight, especially on a flat bit of road as well. He's a bigger rider, and therefore has to generate more power to move at the same speed on a flat bit of road.
That maximum wattage, how sustainable is that? What sort of time?
The maximum wattage that we saw, the 1,000 watts, we're probably talking about 10 or 15 seconds or something like that. It's different if you're a rider like Jonathan Milan, who actually averaged for that sprint when he won stage one, has averaged 1,040 watts for 45 seconds. It's a different level, but most riders, when they hit that peak power, probably 10 or 15 seconds. Malia the other day, we got some data from his sprint, or yesterday's sprint, started off about 1,500 watts, sustained 14 or 1,500 for about 10 or 12 seconds, and then it started to taper off, but by then he'd already opened up that lead, so almost did like a negative split. Some riders kick off and then build up the power. He built up the power initially, got the gap, and then started to slowly taper off near the end, but he'd already won it by several lengths. But he can sustain well over in excess of 1,000 watts for 20 odd seconds or something like that. These riders are so strong, eye-watering numbers that these men can put out.
It's like a cable-launched glider, isn't it?
It is indeed, yeah.
Squirts up there and then just gradually comes down off peak. Amazing. 135 kilometres of the day remaining. That's still a good distance, especially the way that the opening phase of this has been taken.
Yeah, definitely. We've got 20 k's now only to the first intermediate sprint, but we've got a little bit of a loop to do. So we're heading now.
What loop do you do?
We're loop to do another loop. We've already done one loop. We've got another little loop. So in a bit we're going to head north again. So we'll pick up a tailwind.
We're doing that now.
Then we got. I think this might be the bit here where we're heading north. Then we go left, crosswind, back into a headwind. Then we do a hairpin. They probably won't really notice it, but a hairpin through the sprint, then another right, then we're on this long stretch of about 30 odd k's heading due west, do a U-E, head all the way back to that same point due east, and that section is where you're going to get your crosswind.
We're going to have crosswind onto their left-hand shoulder on that big reach out into the countryside, and then upon their right as they return.
Yes.
The switchback comes with about 70 kilometres to go. So there's actually a lot of activity in terms of our direction on the menu coming up.
Oh yeah, definitely. Did you see that Bastian's just tried to take Juric out the back there, but I think Juric is just saying, I'm absolutely done, mate. I've been out in front all week and I'm really starting to suffer.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
He's not doing it on purpose.
He's explaining to everybody why he's exhausted.
Yeah, he is. Look,
I'm really sorry, but I just can't. I just need 1 point,
Look,
he says. One
look at
point.
this.
Stop shaking your head at me. I've been busy all week. He's
I think he's more than justified. I think Bastian's being a more senior rider is a bit cheesed off. You get working. But I honestly think that Juric can't do any more. This lad has been in the move every single day. He's got more than the right to defend that jersey. And do you know what? He's got more than the right to sit on a bit here. Yeah. So I would just let him. I mean, it doesn't affect. You've got 12 guys in the break. Everybody's working well. Yeah. And if you really understand what's been going on, just cut this guy a little bit of slack. He's clear to get in this move. He's done really well because he's actually on the very limit. So and he, knowing what I've seen, if he does feel a bit better in a bit, he will roll through. So you're best off actually nurturing riders like that. You'll get more out of them. Yeah. Again, but Bastian's on one hand is right because trying to encourage everybody to work. But a little bit of brinkmanship. But ultimately, the man in the right for me, playing it sensibly, is the man in the black jersey. Why ride hard now and go flat out and then get popped in the sprint? I mean, given the scenario now, he doesn't even actually need to score any points. No. Because Tarozzi isn't in the move. Samudio's here, so he's in a good position.
He just needs to get through it.
Exactly. So survival, leave him alone, and just get on. Is my view on that one. But it's interesting. The politics in a break like that are fascinating. You know?
I think Bastian's was saying to him, if you pop up and grab some points, he said, I'm not going to do it. I'm 1 point ahead. The man who can challenge me only is not here. So if I roll over the intermediate sprint, just get off my case.
Yeah. You get this all the time. It's really interesting.
Jonathan Milan in the green, though, will be up for absolutely everything. So he was never going to win the sprint, Juric, but that, of course, will go to Jonathan Milan, who wants to make sure of green, which is why he's here.
One would imagine, yep. It's mathematically feasible that he might. So just to go into this stage, sniff an opportunity to take these points, and then I think Jonathan Milan will continue to roll through, but back off. And also, I mean, it might not happen. All this hype we've been given this crosswind section, it might be a bit of a damp squib. But if there is a split, this group of riders, given the gap that they've earned now, the gap they've built up, probably will be in the front group as well. So it's another domestique, another rider to assist any of the leaders that eventually come across. So there's a couple of ways of looking at it. So it's always a benefit to be up the front, scoring the points, and you're there in support of, in particular, Ciccone for Lidl Trek.
And here they go, 2 minutes and 27. It's settled into a proper fighting force. It's not a threat to anybody GC-wise.
No,
we've got some prime riders who've decided to take it on. Gerben Kuipers as team principal. For his team. Intermarché One Team been a bit quiet, I must say, during this race. Tyson, Van Hoek, they've been trying to get themselves into a challenging position out there, and in fact they've had their moments. But there are teams here that I kind of, in the early part of the season, I'm loath to say have been anonymous, because that sounds unkind. But there are a lot of teams here who have got their minds a little bit further down the road, most notably the Classics, which are opening up soon.
Yeah, it's opening weekend. What we're now Sunday, so it's 6 days' time. Yeah. It's time for Omloop, completely different style of racing. There are riders from here that will be there as well. So definitely in the back of some riders' minds who are maybe looking at this race as just a really good block of training with not so much pressure to get results. Especially some of the teams who have got no issues at all in terms of preserving their World Tour status. But for other teams who are looking at the drop, this is an important opportunity to try and score as many points as possible in every single race. And in World Tour races, there are lots of points on offer. But the interesting man for me, the best placed rider in that group, is Alexei Lutsenko. So right now, well, he started the day at 1 minute and 24 seconds. So he is on the road, the virtual leader of the race now.
That was really bizarre. They've actually made a container, retail containers.
Do you know what? I've stopped there for a coffee.
Yes, exactly. So you,
Yeah,
the
years
flag-
ago.
At first, I thought it was border guards, border control, because of course we do cross borders occasionally within the United Arab Emirates as you move from one emirate to another. I wonder whether that's what it actually used to be, and now it's been converted into, well, take your pick: chicken wings, donuts, bit of coffee. Matt's been there; he knows.
Exactly. It was going back a couple of years when I was on site, and we were driving to the finish, and we needed a coffee.
Yeah.
And
there they were.
there's not coffee shops everywhere here, as you can see. So when we spotted that, we were like, here we go.
Yeah.
Brew.
Have you ever come across Saudi coffee? It's very pale.
You've described it to
Yeah.
me, but I haven't ever sampled it myself.
Yeah. Strata Manufacturing, established in 2009. Manufacturing. Composite aerostructures in manufacturing facility.
Wow.
Well, I mean, aerostructures. We're talking bars of chocolate then.
You are, and when you take it literally, it could be looked at in many ways, including a bubbly chocolate bar of much repute.
I'm sticking with that. I quite fancy one. Minty area. Yeah. Anyway, it's getting fresh here.
Yeah, it's getting a little bit more movement now because we're heading towards that
Great
crosswind
segue,
section.
yeah.
So we got Stefan Bissiger on the front. I do love an aero though, and we've got Team Picnic Poster now also
Orange.
floating around. I'm not so keen on the orange one.
Strawberry, that was rare. Anyway, back here, 128 kilometres to go, 2 minutes and 19. We're shooting the breeze, but we have got more than a breeze. It's a bit of a wind today.
Yeah, we're doing this little loop that I've talked about. We've only got now 14 Ks until the intermediate sprint, but there is one big section of crosswind coming up as we look a little bit further down. Is this Samu? No, who is this? I think it's not Samudio. It is Samudio.
It is, yes. Yeah.
He must have been dropped.
I think he's done his
It's
job.
been dropped, yeah.
He's done his job. It was all about protecting Duric, and he actually came up almost as a firepower marker to stop Bardiani thinking about Tarozzi going up there.
Yeah. And again, this is a man who's been on the offensive. He's been at every single breakaway, every single day. We were talking about the fact that Duric seemed laboured. Not so much in his sprint, because I think he can find something for the sprint, but just earlier on he was having trouble just staying in the wheels. But for Samudio, there's no real purpose, and he might have actually got dropped or thought, you know what, the last thing I want to do is lose a heap of time on the climb. Get back in the bunch, settle in, recuperate, feed, and then finish safely. So no real surprise to see Samudio either decide to drop back or simply get dropped.
Yeah. Teammates thinning down then for the black jersey, who really is struggling out
Look
the
at
back.
the crosswind, it's the tail crosswind bit. We're just going across this top here.
Yeah.
Look at the speed they're moving at.
Slightly protected by the palms here, the dwarf palms. Why dwarf palms? Easier to harvest. If you're looking for palm olives or indeed coconuts, none of those here. That's truly tropical where you get the nuts. But nonetheless, talking about nuts, this is crazy.
Yeah, this is
Wow. Proper wind.
Yeah, this is blowing. There's always a little bit of a wind created by the peloton, but look at the other trees on the left-hand side, unaffected by the vortex created by the bunch. And this is a crosswind. It's a bang on in their side on this particular section. It's Finn Fisher-Black himself
hurting.
willing to invest a bit. Where's Tadej Pogacar? Just trying to see if he's in this first little clutch of riders.
Not in the phalanx just for now, but you have to wait to see if he's screened by others. But no, the red accents you see are just part of other
This
kits.
is great, isn't it? Ryan Mullen on the front here as well, lending his very big engine to the fray. There's only a short stretch. They then head into a headwind in a minute, so this section of crosswind is only very short, but what it does is gives us an indication of what it's going to be like when we hit this big open road to take us to our most westerly point of the day. Look at the sand over the top of that big dune there.
Just over the crest of
It's
the
split.
bladed dune. It is, and Tadej Pogacar is not in the front group, as far as I can gather. Now, I imagine he's
there he
probably
is.
in the chase. Oh, there he is. He's made it over, yeah. But gaps opening up behind. And I've got a feeling the Van Eat belt, as the alarm bells have gone off for him, to try and bridge over as well. White jersey, waiting to see where Josh Tarling is as well. I'll tell you who's up here is the European champion, actually, Tim Muller.
Yeah, Muller. Well, he loved it. Most of the Belgians and the Dutch, and anybody who loves a bit of classics action will be lapping this up. I mean, you can hear the cries.
Yeah.
The cries are basically move left, move left. So basically, I think Sam Welsford's in this group as well.
Wow.
Mullen is there.
Here
There's
we
the
go.
splits. And this is just an amuse-bouche compared to what's going to come a little bit later. This is a tiny section across the top of the course. This might be the left-hander in a minute. But that just shows the sort of damage that can be caused. 57 k's an hour.
It also shows how attentive Tadej Pogacar is
Yep.
here, alive to all dangers. Rides like a real veteran. He's still a relatively young man with a long career ahead of him. But look at the panic behind to bridge over. This is fantastic. We're going to get more of this.
Yeah.
Here we go. They make this little shilly-shally, and now we start to head sort of south first. The road does generally bend and head towards the west, so a very, very long reveal of a westerly direction before we have a hairpin and cut back on ourselves.
Indeed. So, as you say, heading into, with the wind, as you can see, the way they're forming there, the wind coming from the right now, still a crosswind, but then they've got another little bit of tailwind which comes in about 8 k's time, and that will take us to the intermediate sprint. So through the sprints will be a cross tailwind, then another little right again, and then back into this long section. But this is just, well, it's split into bits here, isn't it? Riders going back left, right and centre.
Look at the accent of the road here, sort of gently bringing us towards the west.
Whoa,
and they're
look at
already
the
on the
gap.
curve.
Look
That's
at that.
huge.
That's a yawning gap.
That is vast. Now, if anyone's missed out on this one, I'm starting to think about the likes of Ivan Romero, whether this early on, that's a problem.
I think he's there.
I think he's just getting on.
Yeah, I think he's just at the back of that group. So it looked like that was a Romero. He was quite a big lad, isn't he, Ivan? And he looked like he had Pablo Castrillo, who unfortunately doesn't occupy a position in the top 10 after that crash the other day, but still a handily placed 16th at 124.
Yeah.
So Castrillo looks like he's there, but this group is moving clear. They really are relaying well, and okay, it's about positioning, but about raw power on that flat section. It was just absolute power. So you really need to have that big top end. But they are now rolling through. There's a real harmony in this group.
Two groups have actually come together here, and it's actually swollen. Minute 53 now to the red jersey group. This might be the killing of the breakaway, but they'll have their fun on the first of our intermediate sprints. That will suit, indeed, Mila, who wants to make sure that green jersey doesn't go anywhere else, and also the black jersey. So notable interest for those in the front group here. Green and black, as you can see, with red and white chasing him down. So the two active groups contain all of our jerseys. 114 k's, so we're 9 k's away from our intermediate sprint at 114 kilometres to go, so count that one down. And meanwhile, these guys have coalesced into a group that's just slightly bigger than I think some would have hoped for.
Yeah.
I
mean, that's the peloton. I mean, look at the gap that's opened up. It's still not even a minute, but just look at the amount of road, the amount of distance that's created at this sort of speed. And there just isn't the same impetus. One man that has missed it, Jay Vine. That is disappointing from a UAE Team Emirates perspective, XRG. We've got another key rider for Pogacar on the climb, Mikkel Bjerg. So both Bjerg and Jay Vine, remember, in 5th place overall, are not there. They won't ride because they've got their team leader up in front. Just be interested to see what teammates Tadej Pogacar has got with him. I think he's got Novak there for sure, and I think he's also got at least Florian Vermeersch as well. Interesting stuff.
Yeah, very much so. I can't see any men in pink out front.
I don't think there's any EF. That's what they were riding on the front there.
Yeah.
So it's still closable, but just the strength of this group out in front, and the fact that so many big teams are represented in the front group means where is that proper, defined, committed chase going to come from?
Yeah, it's at the moment it remains unrevealed. Minute and 45 now, the gap to our break. There will, as we get closer and closer to that intermediate sprint, I'm hoping that Bastians doesn't just to make a point, because he's been busy tearing a strip off poor old Duric, who's been active all week. Bastian's just making his feelings felt about workload and share. Just check this out as well. You want crosswind action, then you're always going to start looking at Soudal Quickstep to be very much involved in the pointy end when the wind blows, aren't you?
This is what with, especially in the years that they dominated the classics. I mean, they have got a really classics type of team here, building up towards the big races in the next few weeks. But they've got Bastian's in the front, Miller's there, Joseph Cherney, looks like Enkhorn is here as well, and Casper Pedersen. So it looks like they're all rolling through pretty well. And I tell you who are here in number as well. Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe.
Yeah.
Rune Herringot's also there as well, the young Belgian for UE Team at Emirates. So Herringot's has got himself in there. So another key teammate for Tadej Pogacar.
I want to see how Finn Fisher-Black goes today. Spoke to him at the beginning of the day.
Mr. Piero, 1939. Thank you for watching.
When he's in that kind of mood, he's quite cerebral as a rider as well. When he's in that kind of mood, he's absolutely lethal.
Yeah, he just looked relaxed and calm, and this is new territory for him. He's a protected leader for the squad. He's deserved it. Of course, last year he was a teammate of Tadej Pogacar at UAE, right on cue, and now he's just finding out what it's like, discovering a little bit more about himself. And I think that the only pressure on him will be from himself really here, to see what he can do. But I think from what I've seen, I think we're going to get a very solid performance, and he is definitely eyeing that podium.
Is that Romero who's absolutely on the wheel of Tadej Pogacar? Doesn't want to see him go out of his sight.
It is.
Yeah, there you are.
So Romeo looking good, getting a gel down him, making sure he's fueled up. Giulio Ciccone also there as well.
Gosh, some of the principals, Tarling.
Tarling.
Yeah.
Well, we wondered where Tarling was, but tell you what, after that crash, to infiltrate that move, Bilbao also here as well.
Yeah.
We're getting a nice sight of the other riders in here, aren't we?
Now then, what teammates have you got around you? That's the question. There are two here for Tadej Pogacar, but not Jay Vine.
I think Junior Lesurf is there as well, so he'll be the main GC rider. Very good climber. The most diminutive rider of the Soudal Quick-Step team.
Gosh. Well, you know, sometimes your plans have to be amended, and Jay Vine would very much been one of those that was going to have to do his job late for Tadej Pogacar. If this gap, let's just imagine for a moment that it held and went all the way to the foot of the mountain, Jay Vine, as ultimate lieutenant for Tadej Pogacar, will not be at his disposal.
The way things are going at the moment, that gap is opening up. The red jersey group now closing in slowly but surely on the group out in front, but more importantly, or significantly, they've got a minute over this peloton behind, and that gap has opened up in a relatively short period of time, and there's almost a visible difference. Although there's a little bit of organisation in the bunch, it's not quite the same. Hef Bardiani's starting to ride, they've got no representation, but the committed riding here from key teams, and importantly as well, the type of rider that can generate big power on these sorts of roads means that I think the group behind and they are going to continue to slip back.
Yeah, well, if you're right, then Arna Rubio is not going to be at the disposal of Ivan Romeo. That's a big loss for him as well. Rubio's in the other group. He's just having a big chat here, is Ivan Romeo, to Malino Moro, as if to say, this is what we've got to do. And guess what? Here's our man wearing number 1, Van Eetveld.
Yep, Van Eetveld. I think he's, well, there's not that, but I think this is in the bunch. He's missed out here, isn't he?
Yes.
That's where he's got his team riding. That's disappointing.
Gentle shake of the head there, I think, because he knew the camera was upon him. But there's others here that really should be up the road and are not. Gosh. You know, this is where you have to reconfigure. You've got to have a great deal of strength and belief to do a job without your main plan, your main foil to help you out in the job. So Ivan Romeo from Movistar has lost Aina Rubio. He's behind. Tadej Pogacar has lost Jay Vine. So he's also...
And Bjerg.
Yeah, my goodness, yeah, you're right. There's the little... You see the little bicycles which give you that pearl effect? Best bottles in the peloton. Look how easy squeezed they are.
Very
Thinner
easy.
walls than anything else. Gosh.
So very deep detailing, but always good to know. Always good to have, quite literally, in the back pocket.
There we are. But you'll notice even the you can get a deformed bottle here, but you get a very quick shower from them. Michael Pierre and Jay Vine together here. Jay Vine having a little toot as if to say, nothing to see here, everything's fine. But he would love to be in that the group a little bit further up. He isn't. Hugh Carthy's part of that group as well. Just saw him come through.
for this group out in front have eased ever so well. It looks like they've eased ever so
Yeah,
slightly.
they've got 3Ks to the sprint. That's
So there's a little bit of looking around. The man in the green, Jonathan Milan, just wants to make sure he does a good job to take this sprint. And really, Juric now just needs to hang in this group. I'm sure he will for honour go for the jersey. But you can just see even now he's at the back of this group looking at a little bit laboured, a man that's on the limit.
Yeah, Milan's coming up to him and saying, come on, get on my wheel.
Yeah.
At least I'll get the 8.
I won't sprint. Honestly, mate, I won't sprint. I don't even need the points now. Samudio's gone. Tarocci's not here, so he's actually in a very good place. Good riding to actually get in the move, but right now it's academic. It doesn't really matter now.
I wonder if Milan will lead him in. That would be lovely, wouldn't it? Green jersey. Come on, get on the wheel.
I doubt it. I think Milan's a very lovely chap, but I don't think he's going to be given any free points. He just wants to make sure he secures that jersey.
No, I mean,
scoring
he
maximum
would
points.
take it and then have Juric pick up the.
It might do. I think if Juric just gets on the wheel, thing is, if it'd probably be a full sprint just to sit on the wheel of Johnny Milan when he's sat down.
Yes.
Is that strong?
Yeah.
There we go. This is a long. So basically, now we are heading in a due east direction, long straight road through the sprint. We head on for about another 5k.
No. I'm sorry, I've just seen Rajovic. He was trying to lead up towards the front. This man Juric, who is absolutely empty.
Yeah, this is hard riding. It
And
really is.
he couldn't keep his wheel. So he's moving up now. I think everyone else has seen this and said,
As and when he'll do what he can.
oh, there's a
but
little gap opened up.
he can't ride too frequently. As we look at his teammate back in the bunch in the peloton, Samudio, who was in the front group and has now come all the way back. Again, he's had a hard week and will finish, by the looks of things, equal second in that competition. They really are shifting here, but the gap's gone out. So the red jersey group has now taken another 10 seconds out of the peloton behind. So it's not looking good for Lennart van Eetveld, but any other rider who has missed it and was hoping for a high place overall. And that includes Michael Storer as well. This is back in the group.
And a few, to be honest, that would have actually hoped to get something out of the day, such as Chavez, Carthy, Steinhauser at the end of the day. It's unfortunately for them, it's not going to be a fun task, even if this does come back together. Let's see.
Well, it's going to make it even more interesting for Josh Tarling and Ivan Romeo. Tarling's still second, Romeo still third. Remember, Finn Fisher Black in fourth, but. If they open up 2 or 3 minutes on that group behind, even if Tarling fades a bit on the climb, he could still end up with a very high place on the general classification.
He could.
So he clearly must be feeling all right. He's the only Ineos Grenadier in that front group, and that's despite a crash. So Tarling on fine form.
Intermediate sprint popping up. Milan up towards the front here. The man in the black jersey, his shoulders really are rolling at the moment. Keeps losing.
Shout out kang Idol Larry,
Third from back in the black
Team
jersey.
Binangkal.
Intermediate sprint.
Daghang salamat sa suporta mga dol.
Getting himself ready to roll. I don't think anyone would be minded very much to.
Borja family, thank you so much.
Citadel Quickstep would probably like to
Dol
remind
hey Jun, Dol people.
Timberlia
Thank you for watching mga dol.
royally.
Magandang buhay.
Apparently 300 metres to go before we get to that intermediate sprint. Can't see the marker at the moment, but Milan's going to make sure in the green jersey. And here comes the black jersey of Juric. Good for him. He's moved up a couple of spots right now, but here it is, business end of at least the first phase, and they're rolling through. And quite frankly, who on earth is going to deny the big green meanie? Black jersey's going to get up to point score here, and it's being taken to the barriers.
Well, that was
and that was a kickback as well, as if to say, "What the hell are you doing?"
Yeah, that was a little bit unnecessary.
I was right, by the way. It was green and black at the line.
Indeed. Green and black at the line. So first and second, done and dusted. So that will secure the green jersey classification for Jonathan Milan.
Was that Rob Heiss just saying,
Yeah,
you
it was a
didn't do
little
much
bit,
work there?
Yeah, he looked across.
Afters. Did you see that?
Yeah,
Shouting at each other.
Juric has done more than enough. So Robbie Heiss getting involved in the sprint, absolutely fair enough. This is the lead out for, this is Rajovic who's leading out, looking around to see who's going to open it up, and nobody can respond when Jonathan Milan goes. And Juric is just doing his own thing. He hasn't got that punch that he had a few
Watch
days
this
ago.
now.
But he's going for it.
This was the moment. That's mean.
That was unnecessary.
Yeah. And this is the bounce back. This is the push back. There you go.
Yeah,
Some of that.
There's no need for that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, what are you doing, mate? Oh, I'm in the black jersey. I've been in front every single day.
Yeah.
A little bit unnecessary, if you ask me there.
And
But
then,
there we go.
Then there was insults hurled at each other late on. Rob Heiss, I'm not quite sure what you're up to there, mate. Here we are. Still words going on, and he's now offering up for words to Bastions, as if to say, right, I've done my job now, just leave me alone. Almost the impetus and the adrenaline, I think, that's coursing through Duric's veins now means that he's actually come to the front to do a bit of a turn. That's hilarious. Milan, who's basically secured that green jersey now by winning the intermediate sprint, adding the points to his green jersey tally.
Ano si Milan sa ano? Break kaway ah.
The right thing in holding off. He's been out front all day. He was right to sit on, but now he's secured it. It's done. So basically now he can go into the red if he wants to, and if he gets popped, he gets popped. He'll be on the podium in the black jersey. So now he can ride without the pressure of not scoring any points. He's done his job. He scored 5 points in that sprint, securing the black jersey. So now he can roll through, and ultimately at some point he will pull the pin or he'll get dropped as the gap continues to close from the chasing group behind. They're at 1:04 now, and the peloton lose another handful of seconds. So marginal losses, but the direction is the wrong way for the peloton behind. I do think this is not going to be closed. There's just too many strong riders on this sort of terrain now. I think that's going to continue to open up.
We're going to have a formation of the travelling Wilburys up front, a super group with what will be 34 riders if the two front groups come together, and I think they will. It's less than a minute. So you're going to have an easing of those who were part of the engine room was to secure points at the intermediate sprint. The Belgians not happy at all, I'm afraid, with poor old Duric. Words from Rob Heiss, words actually from Kuipers as well, and words from Bastions. I don't know what kind of little stompot gathering there was there, being stirred by that.
I think sometimes as well. I mean,
Big shout out to Chairman Joel Franco.
I think maybe in the cold
Sikalam Rhodes, Abu Dhabi.
best of relaxing slightly.
Have a good day to all of you guys.
It's my opinion, but it is to say
Your
we're
DS
sat.
hat on now,
Yeah, but
haven't you?
we're sat in the comfort of our chair here, and things are different out on the road. I totally understand that, and on paper, I understand the frustrations of Hayes and the other guys. But sometimes it's just you can't actually change anything, and showing your frustration like that doesn't help the situation. I get it, but Duric has been out in front every single day, has earned that jersey by rights, and did the smart thing in sitting on to secure it. That's my opinion.
Yep, there you go. And Matt,
For what it's worth.
Big shout out to Team UCCR.
That's why we love it.
Headed by Coach Roman Lihao.
that's right.
And everybody has
Have a good day, Coach, and to Master Frank.
so sparkle so
Magandang buhay, Kuya Frank. Thank you for watching.
Amongst the Flems, they'd had a chat and said, "Have you seen how much work Duric is doing? He's doing nothing." And so there was a bit of after there. But anyway, they'll all settle down, and you never know. One day they might have a jolly old smirk about it.
They might have a beer about
over
it.
a beer.
Yeah. I tell you what, I've had some royal arguments with riders in over the years.
And then you remember them
and
fondly.
then you have a beer.
Yeah.
Then you see him after racing. Oh, sorry about that. And yeah, sorry. It's just because what you've got to remember as well. There's a lot of adrenaline going on here. You know, to manage that is quite hard. And sometimes you look back, you think, oh my God, I said that or I did this, and so it is difficult sometimes to keep 100% composure. So I'm not.
Let's remember, Matt, it's been a very difficult race for
It's been
all of the
stressful.
riders we've had. You know, it's early season.
Yeah.
People are still finding their form. The classics are coming up. That's pecking order time as well within teams. You want to get the selection. Also, we've had the heat here. It's been, on occasion days, especially early season when it's warm, they can be a bit of an anvil. And some of these guys, they've taken a hammering.
Yeah, exactly. And also when you're on the very limit, one of the
In the service of others
if you're
sometimes, yeah.
if you're on the limit in a move, and you've, regardless of where the guy is on the general classifications, the sprints or whatever, all you see is a rider. And when they start letting the wheels go, it can be really quite frustrating. So we haven't had a camera on the brake all the time, and it could be that a couple of times Juric was letting the wheel go a little bit and breaking up the rhythm of the breakaway. So sometimes that happens, and that's when riders let out, and they respond by trying to maybe block a little bit on the sprint. So hey, it's cycling is complex. Lots of things goes on. It's unsighted to us as well. Conversations, little movements that may niggle people. But there we go. But unfortunately,
I've got news for you.
what's that?
This group, if it does come together, it's only 38 seconds apart. It's going to be even bigger than I thought. It's going to be 41 riders.
Yeah. That's a good. It's about a third of the entire field, isn't it?
Good Lord. And
But
the teams that have missed it, they're going to be feeling a bit aggrieved.
They are.
There's lieutenants that have also missed it, I've got to tell you. However, Tadej Pogacar's got Harragot, Novak and Vermeersch, but he doesn't have Jay Vine. For Movistar, Ivan Romeo has Castrillo. He has made it up there. And Moro, but he would have liked Isla Rumio, who's back in the chase, that sits at 2 minutes at the moment. But the peloton, I should say. This is going to feel like the peloton up front.
Yeah, this is the split from earlier on. This is when they really started to accelerate into that top part of the course. It was only about a 6 or 7 kilometre stretch, but it was enough to cause considerable damage. And just look at the sort of riders that are doing it. Max Valscheid laying down the power, rolling through with the likes of Mullen, pretty much the entire Soudal Quick-Step team looking after Junior Le Cerf. He's done a great ride, the little climber, to tuck in amongst these big power riders, got himself in a good position, sat in the wheels. That shows real skill. And also look at Tadej Pogacar having to work so hard in the wheels there.
Do you know who's also here? Oscar Onley. And he's got Anderson and Van den Berg around him, so he's actually well supported. And he did an amazing job when it came to Jabal Jais, second behind Tadej Pogacar. Said he wished he'd been in a better position, and then the gap between between the Kelso Comet and indeed Tadej Pogacar would have been a bit more modest. I think he was being hard on himself. He did a great job, and possibly will today.
Yeah, he's. I think he was pretty hard on himself, but just shows the level that he expects of himself. So still very self-critical, but the bottom line is he's in great form. Now that's the breakaway that we've just gone through. 38 seconds. Earlier on, we were talking about the wisdom of Lutsenko, for example, driving so hard early on. And then we talked about the benefit of being on the front foot in the breakaway, having invested a bit. Now he's at the front of the race. And Lutsenko isn't now the virtual leader. That's back on the shoulders of Tadej Pogacar. But Lutsenko, given the absence of many riders, remember we saw Steinhauser, 11th overall, Riccicello, Keplinger, all back in the group, as Storer back in the group as well. So Lutsenko and Le Cerf as well. Le Cerf was 18th at 128, Lutsenko 17th at 124, and there's a whole heap of riders from that midsection of the GC that are gone. So they're going to vault into the top 10. So great riding by Lutsenko to be in that early move.
But is he here?
No, he's in the front. He's in the breakaway.
I beg your pardon.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. In the first break.
I thought he dropped back.
No.
That's what you were saying.
No.
Superb from him. And he does have flashes of
Thank
brilliance.
you for watching. 418 in the house. Thank you for tuning in, guys.
You think, well, why?
Please don't forget to click subscribe, like, and share.
Stayed in front, and
Thank you.
the race is going to come to him. That selection's been made, and now he can relax a little bit in that big group. He's got a couple of teammates there as well.
Enjoy watching, guys.
Climb on
418 in the house. Thank you so much.
The bunch are reacting a little bit. 152 it is now, but that means it's about 1 minute and 20 between the red jersey group and the peloton. So they haven't given up the peloton. It does mean that the break, if they
Shout
want...
out to all. Trupang Talabat 30 plus plus. Headed by Idol Loloy, Saidin, Pogi.
And from Lotto.
Thank you for watching Idol Loloy.
Better to try and bring this gap.
Yeah, EF Education Easy Post would like to get something out of the day.
And to all Talabat Crocs, teammates, tropa. Lalong-lalo na kay Parang Jigs.
No reach out. There's
Parang Jigs lang, sa kalam.
in this part of the world, you know, it's no good grasping dry sand, you'll end up with nothing. It's better to have an open palm if you want to keep the sand. Don't try and grab it, you'll just squeeze it to death. And that's, they're finessing that now. There's no real rush to bring these two groups together because it's going to happen anyway. 28 seconds is the gap between the red jersey group and those out front, with the peloton trailing the front group by 1:50. Well, there you are. Yeah, not a real hurry up here, but certainly an intent. I think when the front group forms into a fighting force of getting on for 40 plus, I think there may well be a reconfiguring, and I think they'll go again. I'm still not sure the peloton's going to get back on here.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Once the two groups do converge and form the group that you've just talked about, it might be just a little bit too big. And when I say that, it might be a little bit. There are a few riders sitting on, but there's a couple of teams that are working, and in particular, Team JK Ulua. They've got good representation in front, but in terms of taking the win on the day, it's quite hard. But they just get stuck into the bike racing. But there's a couple of teams as well who have eyes on the podium, eyes on the top 5 spot, and a good placing on the stage. And of course, we are heading back into that crosswind section again. So we could see a reforming, and then we could see another selection even from the front group. So 40 riders heading into that crosswind section could be reduced to around 20. So we'll see what happens. So we've got another phase of possibly very intense racing to come. Because if a team decides that group is too big, there's too many riders that are a little bit considered dead wood, not contributing, they'll just stick it in the gutter again and try and force another selection. So, and all that's going to do is open up the lead. Because right now, the peloton are actually closing. As we speak, the peloton are marginally the fastest group on the road. They've actually shut down about 10 seconds on the group with Tadej Pogacar in between. So it's still in the balance here.
Yeah, I want to see what the response is of the second group on the road, just ahead of the peloton, well, just behind these guys. You can see, this is the front group we're looking at right now, which contains the green jersey. There he is, popping into our consciousness once more. Having secured that green jersey has Jonathan Mila. Tim Malia is in that chase group of 29 or 30 riders. So is Oscar Onley, doing it for Scotland. Scotland missing out very narrowly yesterday in the Rugby Union Calcutta Cup against England on the very last kick of the game. Wasn't quite the last kick of the game, but the clock had gone red nonetheless. I felt really sorry for Scotland. I thought they were fantastic and should have been worthy winners. Would have made it 5 wins in a row against England. England held on. It was incredibly narrow. So yeah, maybe Oscar Onley's going to do it for Scotland today. That would be lovely. I'd love to see him go, and the Kelso Comet, as we christened him.
Yeah, he's got himself in a pretty decent position. He's got a couple of teammates with him as well, riders that won't necessarily be able to help him on the climb too much, but riders that can definitely look after him for the vast majority of the day in these crosswinds. Julius van den Berg and Tobias Lund Andersen. So yeah,
frond action. Look at that.
It is very, very blowy, isn't it? It's just these foreshortened shots we get from the helicopter on this arrow straight, almost runway-esque bit of road, give you a true indication of how an echelon works. Now, as you can see, they've got a lot of space on the road, but all it would take is for a rider to stick it into the gutter, and therefore reducing the shelter available to split it again. But right now, that's a workmanlike group. There's no interest in doing that. So, and sometimes a rider, without doing it intentionally, will drift to the middle of the road, and that immediately starts to reduce the amount of space available, and that's when you get this crying. Generally the shouting is to move left, or move right, or move right. Or conversely, when you're trying to split it, stay right. So not allow that sort of space. But right now they're using all of the road, so everybody has got that shelter. And the reason why it splits so much quicker in Belgium, for example, is because the roads are nowhere near as wide.
Yes.
So even if you've got the echelon using the whole of the road, the guys at the back, who are at the very end, have just got the gutter and then no other shelter. But right now, they're riding in perfect formation.
Yes, not nice being in the gutter as well. Not so bad when it's dry and pleasant such as this, but we've had some pretty sort of dull, wet weather throughout much of Europe. And it's getting to getting to the muddy season, isn't it, on the road game?
Yeah, very. But yeah, it's going to be. There's going to be what we call Belgian toothpaste on the roads. I mean, I'm not too sure what the long-range weather forecast is for opening weekend, but
not
it could be
bad,
anything. Is it okay?
Yeah,
Is it looking, or is it not looking too bad? Because we've had some Baltic conditions in the past. We've had pretty much everything thrown at. Well, it's called Nieuwsblad this year. It's not actually called Het Omloop Nieuwsblad, not Het Nieuwsblad now for some reason.
Yeah, they just need to stop messing
It'll take me a year to get that right.
Well, the amount of times you said Jumbo-Visma is probably longer than that.
Do you know, it was once, but it was in this race. I've fallen on my sword, Carlton, but I think I've been all right since then. But I just need that electric cattle prod if it happens again.
Yeah, don't worry, it's fine. 23 seconds only is the gap now. And in fact, it's stretched again because that red jersey group has kicked on.
Yeah.
I thought this might happen. I think if it does get selective, I think it's very hard to hang on to the coattails of a determined Onley, Romeo, Ciccone, and indeed Pogacar. They all want this gap to stay. They've got enough support here and enough belief, I'm sure, in their principal riders to make this count. We're coming up to the 100 kilometres to go marker, which tells us that we have dealt with 76 kilometres of the day. This is proper.
Yeah, we're still averaged. We're just nudged under 50 k's now, so 49.3 k's now, and look how straight this bit of road is. But they're in the ideal formation, and yeah, after initially starting to close, you're quite right. The gap is now coming out again from this second group on the road. So yeah, good move for the guys behind in front. Sorry to wait a brief moment to get a gel and some drink, and then slot in behind and grip the bars because we've got some more crosswind coming up. But right now, everybody's pretty happy just to roll through.
They need to pace up now.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they could end up off the back.
Oh, the last thing, it's very easy to not get the right amount of momentum. Have a rest.
Oh, don't do that.
Then we go the other side of the road.
That wasn't great. That was Bastian's going over. Anyways, he might well be carrying water or some gels from the cars that he will have been serviced with to drop off to teammates.
You can just see Bruno Amiral looking to see if he can find any teammates, and he won't see any. There's nobody in that chasing group. The only rider, that's why Decathlon are riding. Tudor Pro Cycling are riding for Stora. Lotto are riding for the defending champion, then at Van Etvold. And I'm wondering whether they'll just leave Logan Curry up there for Lotto. Certainly won't need to ride anymore, but dropping back. It's certainly not a lost hope yet.
That was really nice.
Does Logan Curry drop back, or does he stay in this group?
Casper Pedersen, I think it was, with Junior Lesurf, Inkhorn, and of course joining with Bastian. So it's like, come on, where have you been? Get in. Let's make this happen. They're pushing on, loving the scenario. Big group then of 42 riders up front.
Yep, this is the chase group still rolling through. It is Lotto, unsurprisingly, Tudor Pro Cycling, VF Group, Bardiani, CSF, and EF Education, Easy Post. One of the World Tour teams to have no representation out in front. I imagine that Amiral will actually sit on now because his team are chasing behind another team that don't have representation. Well, they have a really weakened team in terms of crashes. So they've lost Bjerens, they've got no Olev Koy, no Gloag, and no Vermote, and they don't have representation. And only one man in front for the Ineos Grenadiers as well, but it is the man that sits in second place overall, Josh Tarling. So a really interesting mix of riders. The early breakers, some crosswind specialists, and a smattering of GC riders. Good riding here by the champion of Israel as well. No, sorry, that's the bunch is just at the back of the group feeding. Yeah, but they do have Nadiv in this break for Israel Premier Tech, so they are represented. And of course, they've got Litsenko there as well.
Yeah, and Cote.
Indeed.
But sadly, no Chris Froome, who's out of the race. Those of you joining us, it didn't look great regarding Chris Froome. It appeared, as his bike was so destroyed, that he's actually hit the nose of a traffic divider in the middle of the road. And possibly, I don't know whether he veered because somebody else had got themselves into trouble, but possibly was, well, who knows? We're speculating. But one rider, it was a bit of a a skittle effect. They ended up with 6 on the road, including Josh Tarling, who picked himself back up in the white jersey and got on with the job, and he's in the front group, so it was survivable. But unfortunately, Chris Froome did not look very good at all. I just hope he's all right.
Yeah, no, definitely. Now, the gap's starting to come down again, so they've taken the best part of 15 or 20 seconds off. There's a rider in between who's clearly been dropped from that group or decided to pull the pin. I'm wondering if that is... No, it's not Logan Curry. Logan Curry's still there. This group, for me, is just a little bit too big. It's a little bit too unwieldy. There are lots of teams willing to still ride it, but there's a lot of riders also just sitting on the coattails as well, and that could be a little bit of a problem. That's where you sometimes lose momentum, and they are losing a little bit of time. So they just need to keep this up, because there is a real determined chase behind now. There is real organisation, but they need to do it sooner rather than later. The longer the chase goes on, the harder it is to sustain.
The entire team of Cyril Quickstep are in the front group.
It's not bad going, is it?
What a job is that? So if they're looking for some early season training, they've got it. Maria Bastians, Cherney, Inkhorn, Le Cerf, Pedersen and Van Lerbacher.
That is very, very impressive, isn't it?
Well, this is their kind of scenario. Crosswinds, of course. Milan now being joined by Ciccone, Conrad. It is about Ciccone today, so Milan's going to have a secondary duty. Romero with support from Moro and Castrillo. Not bad, but he would have liked, I think, Ina Rubio, who's not there. Tadej Pogacar's got a little bit of a compromise to work with. Poor old Pello Bilbao's isolated. He would have hoped for Keplinger to be up there. He is not. Bilbao is on his own. Talking about the principals within the group of 42 that would hope to get something out of the day. Pogacar's got Harragots and Vermeersch, but does not have Jay Fine, who missed the move, and he's in that trailing group. Only 54 seconds, though. They're kicking on. Yeah,
they are slowly but surely bringing them back. They might have to... They're dropping back a few cars, because that convoy, because there's so many riders in the front group, actually acts as a bit of a carrot. So they're pulling out. There's 4 team cars there that have been told to pull over, just to make, just to create less of an object in front for these riders to look at. Even it's amazing how much difference just something visible in front. Although the riders are a little bit further in front, it's just the fact that you can see the cars that acts as a little bit more of a carrot. So this is where the likes of Lidl Trek and Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe, this is the frustration here. Yeah. Mullen knows it. He knows the gap's coming down. Then this is where they need to really stamp on it. This group is too big. When I say too big, it's just the size it is. There's too many riders sat on, and they're risking losing the benefit of that, of the gap they've already opened up in the crosswind. So Ryan Mullen urging everybody to keep on riding. Joseph Cherney riding through, William Le Cerf riding through, and meanwhile behind, we've got multiple teams now relaying pretty effectively. Yeah,
it's the teams that have missed it. Tudor with nobody up front. They want to very much get involved. A lot have got Logan Curry, but they want Van Eetvelt there. Bit of urgency for them. A few others likewise would like some representation on the nose. Ruben Thompson hitting the front now for Lotto. A little bit of a relay job having been done by the likes of Kluckers for Tudor Pro. None of those teams in the front group, and so it's EF, Tudor, bit of decathlon action here as well. They'd quite frankly like to deposit Felix Gall and Seixas up front, because Bruno Amarai is not their chosen son. So there's a few factors which means that there's a spirited chase here.
Yeah, definitely. And on this particular section, the way they're going out, the wind is banging on the side, but it was slightly on their nose. On the return leg, it actually gets a little bit more pacey, so it'll be over their right shoulder, pushing them along a little bit more. Still, the wind is blowing from the south to the north, but there's real organisation behind here. But the fact they've stripped some of those cars out means that visibly, they're that little bit further away. But right now, it's holding steady at 52 seconds. So the group behind, let's say the main peloton, although it's just over half the bunch because there's so many riders out in front, are riding at roughly the same pace as the riders out in front. So they're matching them, and at the moment not closing. It is an active and live pursuit. And Lidl Trek, no, there's a lot to gain. So even Giulia Ciccone, this is the thing, although you've got big powerhouse riders, the riders looking for overall ambitions, need to invest a little bit themselves.
They do.
So every now and again, Ciccone will roll through, even Tadej Pogacar rolling through as well. It's in their best interests. Tadej Pogacar hasn't got the climbers he'd want with him, but he's still got two very capable riders, or two new riders, two brand new teammates, Herengotz and Vermeersch, who've clearly stepped up and have been very impressive in the crosswinds.
Tadej taking a toot, just riding by him for Movistar. Ivan Romeo, he's got Moro and Castrillo, has so reasonably well supported, I must say, Ivan Romeo. If this sticks, he's certainly going to be one of the principals today. Onley has been quietly efficient within this group as well. Hasn't spent an over amount of time on the front, but he's got Andriessen and Vandenberg as support. So Onley very, very well supported as well. Different kind of climb to Jabal Jais where Onley thrived, but don't be surprised if he's very much towards the pointy end today. So we have Pogacar, we have Onley, we have a few others. Harold Tejeda is here for XDS Astana. I'm talking about the principals who will stretch their legs later on. Finn Fisher-Black is up towards the front for Red Bull. We have as well Ciccone, who's in an elevated position. Lutsenko, who must never be really struck out, could be a top 10. Bilbao, definitely. And Ivan Romeo, the aforementioned. So that is quality that we have in the front group. And for those that have missed it, it's a bit of a headache, to say the least.
It certainly is. And the way they're riding at the moment, we'll get to the furthest westerly points, and we'll be in a situation similar to the other day when the breakaway will do a U-turn and then see the bunch directly, or stare them straight in the eyes. And in 50 seconds, it wouldn't surprise me if they pull out nearly all of the cars. That's going to be the wise thing to do. But they're relaying really well, but still matching. Went down to 49 seconds, bouncing back up to 50. So not much between the breakaway or the split, should I say. It's hardly even a break, is it? It's just an enormous split. 51 seconds of bouncing. But everybody now is pretty well organised. There was quite a lot of verbals going on.
Yeah.
Ryan Mullen in particular, as we get confirmation of the green jersey standings. There you go, Jonathan Milan. He's going to be taking that jersey. Not enough points on the road now for Milan. Safe with 73.
Duric, not only got a black jersey, but third place in that competition. He'll probably take a little snapshot of that. Because Tadej Pogacar is likely to point score again towards the end of the day and vault him. But, I don't know. How the points ranged at the end of the day?
Yeah, if it's 15 for the win. So,
so Tadej, enough,
if he wins, which is highly likely, he should vault above Duric. But still, Duric.
No irony there. But
no. I mean, you never want to get.
You never know.
We never know. It's a bike race, isn't it? Anything can happen, as we've seen today. Let's hope that there's no more offs today, but anything can happen. But yeah, I think still the red hot favourite in the red jersey is indeed Tadej Pogacar. He's got himself in the front split, got a couple of handy teammates with him, but there is an active pursuit behind, because there's several riders that will be pretty disappointed, and several teams as well that will be disappointed they haven't got anybody in the front. But there's the gap. They've reduced the amount of the flotilla of vehicles behind.
That looks like a heartbreak gap, because
it may never be closed, or it might.
There's so much power up front. You're kind of looking there and thinking, how are we going to this 54 seconds? If you're within sight and you're still being denied any closure, despite you're putting in an awful lot of effort here, you've got to feather your effort a little bit. You can't have a burn down before you get to the climb. So it's a difficult balancing act.
Yeah, it is. And ultimately, for a sustained period of time, I know it sounds obvious, the bunch have got to go quicker. And on this sort of road, it's actually really hard to do that. They're at or near their maximum. It looks like all the resource that's available has actually been deployed. And now it's just about strength. How long can they sustain it? And all it takes is for one rider to start to feel it a bit, start to fade, then another rider. And then it means that the other riders on the front are doing a little bit more. Here's that U-turn that we're talking about. This is where they pick up the wind. It would be ever so slightly helping, so still a crosswind, but helping them marginally more than it was on the way out, because there's these little changes of direction. But Herengotz looks good, doesn't he? Gets super low,
really great,
piling on the pressure, and they found another 3 or 4 seconds. Yeah, he's a stocky, strong unit.
There we are. Yeah, I mean, he's getting so close to the top tube, what I like to call a belly rest. But anyway, 89.8 kilometres. And look at who's up front. Peo Bilbao's up there, of course, Tadej Pogacar. We have Ciccone, we have Oscar Onley, we have Finn Fisher-Black, we have Ivan Romero. Even if it sticks like that, just if it sticks like this, we're going to have a hell of a punch-up when we get to the foot of the climb. I am really, really looking forward to this.
Yeah, it's going to be some sore legs. Well, certainly some legs that will know they've had a bike race when we hit the bottom of the Jebel Hafit, especially that early section. Well, it's fast early on. Again, even in the wheels at those sorts of speeds, you're going to know you've been on a day out. And then that action in the crosswind just to make the selection and then having to roll through. But bizarrely, once the front group is established, once you're rolling through and comfortable, because the turns on the front are so short, you actually do get quite a lot of recovery. And that's why these echelons can be so efficient. They're hard to get into, but once you're there, if you know how to ride an echelon, it can be relatively comfortable, especially in such a big one. Plenty of rest, and plenty of rest means when you are on the front briefly, you can keep that speed really high.
Of the chase group, there will be teams that are sitting in, not doing the work. So there is, it looks like quite a big bunch, but to be honest, there's which are having to do the lion's share of the work here.
Yeah.
And they're gonna burn down fast.
Yeah, this is where you're going to have to lean on guys with the big engines. Most of them are in front, but the likes of Stefan Bissiger, he's the man that could do this all day long and actually quite like it, because it's the sort of effort, it's the sort of energy, and he's just got that big engine for the flat road, so he's going to be key. But already, Carlton, they've lost a couple of seconds. It's still not terminal, this gap. It's still closable, but it's drifting outwards again, and it looks as if there are a few less riders on the front. Riders starting to miss turns. It's just really hard. I'm not saying the heart's gone out of the chase, but it's starting to fade. There we go, tail crosswind bit here, and look at the additional bit of speed they've found.
Durbridge leading everybody here, the Aussie
You'll be loving it. Absolutely loving it.
This is great training, apart from anything else.
Oh, it's classic. This is classics territory.
Yeah, exactly. Looking at Decathlon as well, they've got two protected riders in Seychelles and Gall in that chase group, not the one we're looking at the moment. This is the front group. And they're running out of resources and having to do some work themselves. And when that starts to happen, you're on a burn down, because there's a lot going to be demanded at the end of the day. And look what's happened to the gap. We're nudging up towards a minute as we seek out the rhododendra.
That's a great shot. That's an arty shot.
It is.
All we need is a little scorpion in there. It would be complete, wouldn't we?
The cameramen, they're known for putting scorpions in jam jars to be used a little bit later on. Yeah, poor old mummy scorpion away from the kids, but further down the road.
It looks like Team Visma Lisa bike has thrown somebody on the front as well. Trying to take a feed at that sort of speed, very difficult.
Yeah, very
well
much
done.
so. But to be honest, very little chance as well to take on sustenance, because it's been busy right from the very start. That was Ed Turns, by the way, that made the great reach for the knapsack. Meanwhile, Shoot the Breeze.
Yeah.
I guess job done. And a couple of stage wins to his name. Absolutely superb yesterday.
This is such a good workout for these classics riders as well.
Exactly.
And of course for Soudal Quickstep, they're possibly going to try and elevate Junior Le Cerf into the top 10 here. And let him see what he can do on the climb. So imagine being a rider like that and having the likes of Tim Merlier and the entire team piling on the pressure at the front. That's really going to motivate him. Yeah, this is going out now. I mean, I'm not saying the fight is completely gone, but it's dimming. It really is dimming, and there's an additional bit of motivation. And the DSs will have all this information. They'll be passing it on to the riders, and they'll be saying things like, "Guys, they're cracking. Give it a bit more. Give it another squeeze. They're cracking. There's not as many teams. Their heads are going." All this psychological stuff. All it does is add fuel to the fire. Not that they need motivation in front, just to give them that little bit more to put them on the back foot.
You know what else, Matt? The team that were, excuse me, just sitting in perhaps just a little bit when the chase was being mainly evoked by Lotto and Tudor. Now they're regretting it, because they're coming up and they're adding to the impetus. And the exchanges are getting fewer and fewer. You're seeing frustration starting to be shown here by Visma Lisa Bike, saying, come on, let's get through and do this job. It's not happening. It's not cohesive. If they'd all been together and really gone for it, maybe. It's gone to 1 minute and 10. They've lost 15 seconds
and look,
in possibly as many metres.
And already,
1500, I mean.
You've got Bissiger on the front, but he rolled through, and the rider behind him from BF Group Bardian has got to do what we call a double. That shouldn't happen. If it was an active, organised, concerted chase with the proper amount, there'd be a constant train of riders. And they've lost just in the few moments I've been waffling about that. They've shipped the 5 seconds.
I'll have some maple syrup with that.
Thank you very much. Oh no, now you've made me really hungry again. Oh, thank you very much to Steph, your wife, for making us that lovely banana loaf that we had for breakfast.
Yeah, it was nice.
That was really nice.
Yeah, it was fresh as
thank
it
you.
is. It was nice and moist and crumbly.
It'd be great in your back pocket in a bike race. I tell you,
As a little treat.
it's really nice. Definitely.
Opened it up in the foil and gone, oh.
It would be a cheeky little morale boost on the last 25k.
83.9 kilometres to go. We are at a fair old clip.
Yeah.
Now there's a cross tailwind that they're doing with. You probably see that from the trees here as well, being described to you. So a little bit of an easement out front, but it's into the task at hand, which is just keeping themselves clear of those who would be rivals later on. There's enough GC men in this group. There's an entire team, by the way, of Soudal Quickstep. We're getting their crosswind training in nice and early. Black jerseys here as well. Congratulations to him and to Team Solution Tech, Vini Fantini.
I think that
for
was
really animating this race.
Yeah,
actually.
that was Samudio still in the back of that group, actually.
I love him.
Because he came back from the front group to the second group first, and he's still there. So our two breakaway kings, or two of the breakaway kings, we have to really add Tarozzi into the mix, still in the front group.
Lovely.
Just shows on stages like this with a crosswind, and that is the reason. I'm quite sure of it now, the more I think about it. While Lutsenko thought, he's smart, he's a wily rider, I'm going to invest early so I don't have to, so I can possibly be in the front should there be a split. And if it doesn't split, well, there you go. I'm on the front foot. He's now staring at a nice top 10 place right in the face.
So a few off the back of the front group that's just relayed back to the cars. Don't worry too much about them. Still waiting for a time gap. I believe it's now hovering around about 1 minute and 20.
Yeah.
And within the main bunch here, there's no real urgency to get to the front. There's a lot of teams here who've got players, major players, in the front group that won't be helping out in this drive. And you're starting to see some shoulders starting to waver here. 1 minute and 36. This is getting loud.
Yeah, it's there are still teams rolling through, but they just haven't got the same pace, not the same amount of riders. There's a few teams as well.
And the car's going into the gap.
Yeah, back into the gap. They pulled a few out when it narrowed. It did go down to as low as 40 seconds at some point. It could almost reach out and touch them, but not now. That is continuing to go north. And there are lots of teams here who aren't interested in chasing and are actually disrupting it. So when you get riders dropping back, they're getting in the way, just gently, subtly disrupting any chase that there is.
Been watching that from Team Picnic Post now. I've got Oscar Onley up there, and he's well supported.
And even Rubio's near the front, just getting in the way slightly.
Exactly.
I mean, it's perfect that's what you do. And it means that if you are a rider that wants to get involved in the chase, you've got to move past them. It's just classic, good team rider. But look at the sharpness of this right here. Despite this being a very unwieldy, large group, there is real fight here. There's real ambition. And importantly, there's the right sort of rider. You know, the likes of Welsford, the likes of Mullen. I mean, the likes of Tarling, who is the only man here from Ineos Grenadiers. But roll through, just every now and again, roll through, and you're doing a great job. And
there are some isolated riders here. Principals as well. Peo Bilbao is on his own. He's got nobody from Bahrain Victorious. Keplinger would have been ideal for him. Amarai is not the chosen son for decathlon. He's on his own. It should have been Gaul and Seychelles. They really didn't form a cohesive fighting force behind. Josh Tarling is on his lonesome. Wouldn't have really had a whole load of backup, I don't think. Possibly hoping for it from Hajduk and Castroviejo. But it's a diminished team, even further so, I'm afraid, today after some bumps and bruises. Kuipers is alone as well. Lutsenko's got good company here. He's well supported. Ciccone is well supported with Uli, Conrad and Jonathan Milan in the green jersey. I think we'll probably just take him to the foot of the climb. Ivan Romeo with Castria and Morrow. Not bad, but I think he would... in fact, he's very well supported. He hasn't got Rubio with him, but that's the only missing factor, I think. Finn Fisher-Black with Mullen and Danny Van Poppel and also Sam Welsford. somebody else as well. He's got somebody to chat to, and that can count for an awful lot on a long day, can't it?
Yeah, it's good for the morale. Is Sam
Yeah.
Wilford is a chirpy character, and importantly, very strong
Yes.
as well. When you talk about the rulers and the lead-out riders, the TT specialists, sprinters, there's plenty of sprinters in this group, but they've got the raw power to ride on the flat. The sprinters, remember, aren't just sprinters. The riders that can function well in the classics, and adding that sort of firepower just means that this group, I think I can say with reasonable certainty that this group is now not going to get caught, and the winner of the stage and indeed the overall is going to come from this one. So I think anybody who would have been left behind, even the likes of Van Etveld now, the sun is setting on their overall chances. The only hope they have is that they can keep the lead at a reasonable distance and claw back some time on the climb itself, because riders will lose 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes on this climb.
Oh,
and a lot of the riders will fall away. So there's still, I mean, it's just mitigating now. So we'll see. But the more they lose, the harder it is. But there will be riders from this group that do end up losing minutes. But their role isn't that. Their role is to make sure that they've got their GC rider with a nice buffer, so they can fight it out for the podium.
That was Fabio Jakobsen, as well, sprinter, at the back there with Hugh Carthy from a group that's now must be fearing disappointment writ large. And you can see it's not as committed on the nose here. They're rolling through, but it's almost... they're almost crashing into each other right now. It's hardly strung out and purposeful, is it? Byron Victorious has been called up. This would be a strange one, because Pello Bilbao is more than capable of doing things on his own. In the front group of the favourites, of course, you've got Tali Bocacha, you've got Tahida, you've got Onley, you've got well, I'm just going through this amazing group of riders up front. Finn Fisher-Black is there, even Romero is there. We've got Ciccone up towards the front as well. Tarling, the young rider classification leader, Pello Bilbao. What I'm trying to say is there's enough talent to look normal when we have our finishing roster. We'll write down the top 10 and we'll think, yeah, that's more than understandable.
Yeah.
But some big names have missed out.
Yeah, I think you're quite right. There's nothing anomalous about this breakaway.
No.
It's not as if we've lost pretty much all the GC contenders and we're going to get a slightly bizarre looking GC at all. There are some key GC riders. The most significant, of course, is Lennart Van Etveld, the defending champion. He's not here. But there's also a lot of riders who were in the teens, sort of 11th, 12th, 15th, 18th, who are now moving. I mean, who are moving themselves back into the fray. So I think we'll have a very natural-looking general classification. And as it happens in stage races, they're the stages that ordinarily you'd think. I mean, this is a stage, it's a flat stage, but there's been a selection, so a lot of the best climbers in the race won't be in a position to do what they do best. But that's bike racing, and that's the way that this race somehow unfurls, and it's something that you have to be ready for, well, firstly aware of, ready for, and able to tackle. And some riders there just weren't at the front. They would have been told by the DSs to be in position.
Mountaintop finale. Win at Jabal Hafid, you're more than likely to win the entire race. That's how definitive this climb can be.
It is. Yeah, pretty much every time. I think the winner on every occasion has gone on to win the race, you were saying earlier on, as we see the riders from Israel Prematic dropping back.
There have been some that would have started off as favourites, most notably because it's headwind affected our finish today, and it happened in the past to Nero Quintana. We were reminding ourselves, weren't we, in 2017? Found really out of shape at the very last time of asking.
Well, he was attacking on numerous occasions.
Exactly.
I mean, thinking back now, digging deep into my memory banks, but I remember he was the clear favourite, multiple attacks, but into a headwind, and that might help out some of the riders in this front group. This is Jay Vine in the back. Unfortunately for him, he's missed out, so he'll be losing that top 10 place overall. Stay the same. But importantly for Tadej Pogačar, hasn't got quite climbing riders that he'd like with him. But I tell you what, I'm sure that Herdengots and Vilmerius will do their very best to take him as deep into that climb as they can.
There's a very strange thing here that you get. You've heard of windburn. That's normally applied when it's very, very cold. But you get a similar thing here. When it's very, very hot, and temperatures are picking up today, we're around 32, but it's peaking at 35. The wind itself can almost intensify the heat. And it's a very strange phenomenon. I don't know if you've ever done this yourself. Say you've got a sweaty forearm. If you were to blow onto your own forearm, it burns. It's almost like you collect the heat and it focuses on one little point. So the wind itself, when it's very hot, can actually be extraordinarily uncomfortable. You think, oh, it's going to cool you down. Sometimes when you get to beyond a certain tipping point in the temperature, it can feel like you're in a blast furnace.
Yeah, I mean, it's a blast furnace right now. This is another... There's a little bit more
90-degree
help from the wind here. Although we're heading due east, the road is actually flicking ever so slightly to the north again, so they picked up that tailwind rather than the crosswind. And just look at the speed here. We saw that shot of Jonathan Milan. Looked like he was on his own, but Milan in the wheels was grimacing, and I think that tells you all you need to know. They're absolutely rocketing along. And what they've done as well, because this group's so big, they're actually stuck it in the gutter ever so slightly. Have you noticed they're not using the entirety of the road? There are several riders that are sat on, and the riders at the back are starting to lose the wheels ever so slightly here. So if you are at the back, you get very little shelter here. So they're doing this intentionally because there are a few riders they want to maybe get rid of, just to trim this group a little bit, make it uncomfortable. And as a result, after stabilising at 1:45, they found another 5 seconds over the chasers.
We had some great finishes, actually, and we can get a sprint at the very last. Do you remember Valverde in 2019?
Yes.
This was yet another season where the previous one we'd said, oh, surely that's it. He rode over to Primož Roglic, Gaudu, Buchmann. I think we're all up ahead of him. Rounded them in the sprint and won it. I think he backed up the year before as well, 2018.
Yeah, there was a little. It was
amazing.
It was a little group finish. That's
right.
It?
Yeah, it was. And we might get that thinning down today. It depends on how the wind blows.
Yeah, I think it's an exceptionally valid point. Like wind direction, even on a steep climb, the steeper the climb, the less the wind direction will have quite as significant effect. But on a climb like this, being so wide, although there is protection at points from the cliff face, we've seen it before. A headwind can neutralise it dramatically, meaning you get almost like these standoffs, riders attacking. Once you riding into the wind in a headwind, it's easier to shut the gaps. The gaps don't open up quite as much, and also you get a far easier ride sat in the wheels. So sat directly behind a rider using half the effort than the riders in front. So that could affect it as well. It might swing in favour of maybe, for example, Josh Tarling staying at the front deeper into the climb. So it's going to be very interesting how it plays out given the wind direction.
To tell you another interesting little factoid. In our run to Liwa on the opening stage, which was a sprint, albeit with a little bit of a ramp at the end, which Milan took impressively, Pogačar thought he could take it. More altitude gain on that day than this one. Today's altitude gain is 1,300. I think it was 1,400 or so on that flat-ish stage.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Which we thought, oh, it's a sprint stage. Matt's going to just check back on his notes now for us and tell us what the altitude gain was. Today, altitude gain is 1,310. I think it was around the 1,400s on the Liwa stage.
Yeah, so basically, stage one was 1,451 metres, and it was just rippled all the way, and that little kick up to the end. But
so we've got more climbing metres today, bizarrely, than we did on a sprint stage on the opener.
Yeah,
how strange is that?
It is.
It's because it's all compressed. It's almost mirror flat, this, isn't it? Yeah. And then all of a sudden, bam, we're going to have that at the end. And what a punch up it's going to be. Yeah,
we climb. There's a little bit of there's a slight drag after the intermediate sprint.
There's a bizarre saucer we go into at the very last, isn't there? And where you actually go downhill and then pick up for the finale.
Yeah, it's a quite complex tactical finale as we look at the bunch again. See what the bunch are doing here. They're now at 2 minutes.
Yeah,
that's Riccitello at the back, a rider that would have preferred to have been in the front. But again, he's a very, very light rider, and it's disproportionately hard for the very light riders who can't quite generate that absolute power to stay in the wheel. So it's no surprise to me that there's one or two of the purer climbers who are struggling in these conditions.
Yeah, Adrian Petit there just beaming back to base saying that you've got a minty magnum in there. I'm imagining. I'm reading thought bubbles which don't exist here. That's very comic, isn't it?
I do like a nice.
me too. 70.7. It's a very natural thing, isn't it? Circles with a bigger bubble for thought and an arrow.
It just
slice of cheese for speech.
it just feels right.
Don't know why,
I'm
but
a
it's
big fan
instinctive.
of a Lynn Clare and a comic strip, Tintin, Peanuts.
Well, you know what? Family name Kirby. You know, one of the greatest comic writers in the Marvel.
Jack Kirby, yeah,
He was the
amazing
king.
creator. Yeah, I think it's Fantastic Four, Thor, Captain America.
Yeah.
It was not Spider-Man. That was Stan Lee and Steve Ditko.
Yeah.
But Jack Kirby, an absolute visionary.
Yeah.
There we go. We went off into
Yeah.
pop culture there briefly, didn't we? Sorry about that, folks.
Pop goes
well,
the-
I make no apologies. It's a long day. Sam Welsford cooling down here.
There we go.
That's I think in there the team car there.
All
That's a Shane Archibald, the flying mullet. Hello,
Bless
Shane.
him. Yeah, look at that.
He's still rocking one of the best mullets in cycling
Yeah.
in the DS seat.
Yeah, and he's got the least dusty headrest because of it. Brushing it.
Briefly, I thought, what on earth are you talking about? But yes, it's because it's just keeping it clean. Now, this is the bunch behind. Look at this. The bunch stuck it in the gutter, and
look at what's happening.
there's a lot of casualties.
Did say the heart had been knocked out of it. In a bizarre way, it might help them.
It's Jasper.
It was, and it was the first time that the climb that we're going to be enjoying today was used, and it was Wout Poels versus Esteban Chavez. You know, it's amazing actually. Both still very much active. Wout's not here, but Chavez is.
He certainly is.
Yeah.
Well, see, they've basically that was the furthest west, and they've stuck it in the gutter again. Now, this isn't overly helpful.
Oh no!
I mean,
now then, we're not going to get any waves, are we?
we might. I don't think so. Not at this speed. Take your hands off the bars at this sort of speed. You risk all sorts. I don't think there will be any waves. Let's just
Chases.
wait. Let's just see if there's going to be any waves.
We saw them, and it garnered some very
Let's have a little look.
clipped responses. Couldn't see anybody there.
No waves. No waves. Unsurprisingly.
Everyone is taking this very seriously. Quite right. 2 minutes now and plus.
Yeah, they're absolutely driving it hard. Joseph Cherney driving hard there. Dan All just
Some
adjusting
smiles,
his
though.
specs. Yeah. Wow, they're absolutely flying here. They're just
Yeah.
trying to put a couple of other riders in difficulty here, but Quick Step really eating into this crosswind, trying to make it as uncomfortable as they can for a lot of the riders. But look at the man they're looking after there is doing a cracking ride there. Junior Lesurf, the Belgian, sat on the wheel of Dan All, getting as much shelter as is physically possible. And a little bit further
Go on,
back
Josh.
is Josh Tarling. Remember, this man, if you've just joined us, Josh had a very nasty off very early on in the stage that actually took out several other riders. Chris Froome no longer in the race, injured. Arvid Decline also out of the race too. And also another rider who's now, and Behrens as well from Team Visma Leasebike, also out of the race, the under-23 world road champion. An awful crash, but
Look how up for
he's
it
back
they
up.
are. This is fantastic. You saw Jonathan Milan just want to be part of the drive. Make sure that this absolutely sticks. He's doing it for himself. It's almost showboating in green at the moment. 2 stage wins to his name. Missed out yesterday after Merlier backed up stage 5, but Milan taking the opener. And Thursday's run to Al Qanim. And here we are, and it's actually stretched. And I think this is now job done for these guys.
Yeah.
And they may well just preserve themselves a bit, maintain this guy.
Well, the thing is, although I can understand why Soudal Quickstep put it in the gutter there, what it doesn't help is other riders who are willing to roll through. So, guys,
Hold it.
like it. This is what's happening now. It's like, if you want us to ride, don't stick us in the gutter, because we want the same as you. You want to take the surf to the bottom of the climb. I want to take my climber to the bottom of the climb. So let's just use the width of the road. I understand it from a point of view there's loads sat on, and they have got rid of one or two, not many. But here we go. Rather than stick it in the gutter, use the whole of the road, then you'll get cooperation. And that little standoff then, that brief one, was like, are we going to ride together or try and tear each other's legs off?
Yes.
Let's ride together as a collective, and that's what they're doing now.
Yeah.
But Soudal Quickstep, a reminder, you pointed it out, I've got every single rider here from their team.
Yes.
7 riders, including the European champion. So impressive riding by them. But what they don't want to do is get too carried away. They want to encourage rather than try and rip this group apart. And in their best interest, in my opinion.
Van den Berg has said he wants 2 volleyballs. That's what that was. Don't take offence. But at 53, yeah, a trim of about 10 seconds, yeah.
I'm quite like him. He's a lad, isn't he?
He's great, actually.
He's, thumbs up.
Yeah.
He's got it all to do. He's got 2 solid teammates with him as well.
And he can cope with it as well. He's one of these guys that... sorry to use it again, but would have been a great player. Leaving it all out there, but really good-natured. Bike. But yeah, he's a bit of an open book as well. A character. I love it. Yeah, he is. Here's the camera. Whoa. Just wait until later on.
I tell you what, Movistar this year,
it's great, isn't it?
They're like a different team. They had a pretty decent-ish year last year, but this year they've stepped up again.
They had to reform themselves.
Yeah,
far too long they were sticking with Valverde.
Yeah, I mean, understandably, I guess.
Of course.
But it was all around him. All you could think when you heard the name Movistar, you did for a while think Quintana, but mostly it was Valverde. But now they've got this clutch of young riders that have come through. Great signing to get Castillo from Cameroon. A real surprise, was it?
An easy fit for them.
An easy fit, and they're riding with real liberty. They're aggressive, they're taking risks, and they're loving their bike racing. And they're looking at a possible podium here as we look at another fort.
Yeah, I was going to say more of a fortified house, and guess what? It said fortified house. This I can imagine you at least having in your own mind the possibility of creating that. This sort of size.
Something like that would be pretty much bob on. Maybe with a pool, but a little bit nearer the sea. It's a bit too far inland for me. So that near the sea.
It's a long cast for a fish, isn't it? Just under, bobbing around to keep the bobbing theme, around that 2 minutes. Tadej Pogačar, of course. I mean, no disrespect that we haven't spoken too much about him. We expected him to be here. He delivered the job.
Not much more to say, is there? He's got in there. He's got 2 teammates with him. For a moment, right at the very front, we were thinking, is he there? Is he there? And he was there about 15th. But he had to work hard.
Yeah,
he really had to work hard, and unfortunately has lost 2 key climbing lieutenants,
including Jay Vine,
Jay Vine. But yeah, Vermeersch is there, and Herringotts. I don't think Novak is there. No, it's just Herringotts and Vermeersch, isn't it?
That was indeed even Romeo on the front, just doing his turn. Is Tadej taking a turn? I've seen him do it a couple of times.
Yeah, not too much.
Yeah,
but he's been rolling through. He's certainly not riding disruptively. Pierre-André Cote, rider, also rolling. And I can almost imagine what the team meeting was like. This guys, get yourself up the road first, and now you're in a nice position.
Do you know, I really think that the quartermaster needs to get involved with some of these moustaches. You know that you have to, historically in the army, you had to go and ask whether your moustache could be permitted. And there was a quality control. Basically, if it was luxurious and could be trimmed neatly, then the answer was yes. But if it was a bit of a weak tash, the answer was no, and you had to shave it off. And it was all down to the quartermaster.
I do like the idea of a weak tash. Talking of tashes,
we've seen a few weak ones in the peloton, to be honest. They need to get rid of it.
Well, one that has gone, it's not in this race. Ex-Tiazani, you know how Christian Scaroni's been on a bit of a burn the last couple of days.
Yeah.
He said once he won his first race of this year, which was the Classic VAR, he'd shave off his moustache. and then he won again yesterday, sans moustache. So well done, Christian Scaroni. So he had one, and I'm wondering if it was weak, and that's why team management or teammates said, you need to get rid of that, pal, only if you win. And he shaved it off.
Good lad. Well, there you are. You see, the quartermaster did get involved. This artillery elegance.
And yeah.
Incidentally, there's only one part of the army that is allowed a full set, which is beard. You can have it in the Navy, but there's only one division of the army that allows...
It's a paratroop regiment, is it?
It's bomb disposal.
Bomb disposal.
There we are. And you can imagine, you know, you're not going to speak to one of the bravest guys that there are out there and tell him to get his beard off, especially if he's operating in the cold of the trenches. Just thought I'd let you know. Dillier,
interesting stuff.
On board with him, yes. Looking back through this group, this Wafton wave. There we are. 62 kilometres then to go. And the twists and turns of this day, not complete by any means. A minute and 47 is your holding pattern as we look at these wide open savanna here. A lot of camel grass. Not too many camels, I must admit, to chomp upon it as we stand. But, yeah, minute and 48 with a 62 kilometre gap between ourselves and the line. Now, the pace that we've had today, let's have a look at the average speed, over 50 kilometres an hour, so let's pick back up again. The average did drop down into the 49s, but it shows what sort of connected battle that we've got raging here. It's absolutely wonderful. By the way, if you'd like to spare us your thoughts today, it's lovely to have you along for the ride. It would be great to hear from you. I am on X and indeed Blue Sky, so if you search for Carlton Kirby, then you will find me. It's at Carlton Kirby at X and at Carlton Kirby Blue Sky Social, but just if you search for Carlton Kirby on Blue Sky, you'll find me. Meanwhile, this relay continues, and it's a fine old job as well. As far as Movistar are concerned, Ivan Romeo would have liked Dino Rubio, but he has got Castrillo, and I think he and here he is. He's on water carrying duties. He's actually quite a relaxed character, as we were saying. We saw him giving the thumbs up to the cameras. The danger is that he puts too much into even moments like this. Urgency to get water up to his teammates, because he's going to be asking them to work for him a little bit later on. You could say he's obviously clearly at ease with himself, and that's a nice thing. Here we are. Get yourself a bottle, or is it an ice pack? No, it's a bottle. There we are. Clearing the nozzle as it come from a sweaty back by spraying your mate. Why not? He wanted that anyway. 35 Celsius today at peak temperature, and the wind has dropped just a little here. We'll see where it becomes more impactful, but yeah, the heat of the day is now starting to dissipate, so we have the hottest part of it as we just nudged to... In fact, I may have told you a lie there. Where are we local time? Coming up to 2 o'clock. So yes, it's it is that time where it starts to cook. But the wind itself had brought even more heat southerly, so coming off the desert, it hit them. So yeah, it's a bit of a furnace out there. Some have been burnt, I'm afraid, and you're looking at the group that is becoming thinned down, let's put it that way. This is the chase, and I kind of feel sorry for them. This Melissa bike had hopes for Bart Le Mans today. Not going to be for them. Thomas Lowe already out. It's a hobbled team, but they would have expected to be up towards the front. Just acting as disruptors here. Team Picnic Post NL, because Oscar Onley is up further ahead. The gap has come down, though, to 1 minute and 30 now, declaring it was enough up front. They've been back to the cars to get to be fed and watered. They do have vehicles in the service of them, and they've got every right to moderate their effort, because they'll be preserving something for the climb itself. And it could be that we have a gentle sort of coming together. It gets to about a minute, and then it's held all the way to the foot of the climb. There's one more intermediate sprint still to be taken. Milan has taken the first of them, so he's guaranteed himself that green jersey, well won with 2 stage wins. despite the best efforts of Tim Lear, who won, of course, on stage 5 on Friday, and again yesterday, backed that up beautifully with a sensational win. But yes, points have been decided. Black jersey, likewise. And right now, it's really, as you were, another couple of seconds just going the way of the pursuit. I don't think that pursuit is sustainable. It's not cohesive enough in terms of the chase. There were teams there that basically didn't come together to impose themselves on the gap. Another couple of seconds, a minute and 33. When do the front group respond and just go into a holding pattern? Now that they've been fed and watered, I think they're possibly thinking of precisely that. Hands still going up for service. As soon as Radio Tour see that, they do call up cars as part of the help, really, the oiling of the works of the peloton. And indeed, now that they have indeed got their sustenance where they need to be, they may well just kick on. This is a holdable pattern, and it suits this man absolutely perfectly. Tadej Pogačar did a very good job of bridging over. This time, Lenny van Eetveld, who'd responded spectacularly on that enthralling day on Thursday, where Milan eventually won, but Tadej Pogačar, in fact it was Friday, wasn't it? Tadej Pogačar was the disruptor, went up in the breakaway and caused a great deal of disquiet, particularly, it seemed, amongst Appleton de Koenig, who find themselves up front with some representation, but really the biggest unit out there, Soudal Quickstep, with everybody. Yeah, Tadej has been an activator, a disruptor throughout, even some of the sprint stages. And now the spotlight will be upon him to back up what he did on Jabal Jais and repeat the feat here. Will Tadej Pogačar repeat the feat on Jabal Hafid? You'll forgive me. Minute and 40, so it has kicked out as soon as they've got their sustenance. And I don't think the chase was sustainable. Here, Visma Lease Bike, who were trying to just goad others into helping out. We got Rasmus Pedersen of Decathlon 82, the Danish champion, resplendent in his red and white national kit. He goes through. Lotto, well, they really did miss the moment. They've got Logan Curry up front, but I'm afraid Logan is not going to be a major feature towards the end. He would have been back up for Lenny van Eetveld out there. Like Ruben Thompson being asked to get some of the drive in. Some of the disruptor teams here, like Picnic Post NLA in the blue and orange, the reason they are sort of messing around with the nose of the chase is because they are more than comfortable with who is up front. Oscar Onley with Tobias Lund Andersen and indeed Julius van der Beer. Onley could well go extremely well today. Another of the albino camels. That's a classic camel grind down, isn't it, of some camel grass. They have these amazing molars. A camel's head, by the way, is absolutely enormous, especially if you get one of the big bull camels. I mean, sometimes back of the head to the front can be, well, it feels like almost a metre. They are vast creatures, I must admit, these ships of the desert. And they can be quite grumpy. I think I may have mentioned a way of calming a camel. If it's on the ground and it's getting a bit antsy, they will give you a nip, by the way. I'm not given to spitting too much, that's llamas, but they will give you a nip to remind you who's boss. But on the back of the skull is like a little blade, and if you scratch that either side of it, so you sort of kind of grab hold of it, if you will, the camel becomes almost kitten-like, because it's something they can't scratch themselves. They absolutely love that bit of attention. So yeah, if you want to make friends with the camel, that's what you do. Go for the back of the head. You'll find that bladed lump I'm talking about on the back of the skull. Give that a little scratch, and you've got a pal for life. I had a couple of camels where a camel whisperer told me the secret, and yeah, it was amazing actually, because I got an antsy camel when I was in Cairo, and we stopped for a rest, and I kind of made friends with this camel by giving him the old scratch on the back of the bonds, and from then on the camel was amazing. Where it had quite a lumpy ride until that point, after that he was stepping around just about everything and making sure things were as smooth as possible for me. It was a cheap exchange as far as I was concerned. Fascinating. Well, we're going to be joined by our wider cycling fraternity before you know it. But right now, we kind of know the tale of the day, don't we? It's going to be the front group, and it's being pushed back out now to getting on for the 2-minute mark. You see the clock's just readjusting itself. It had been trimmed down to 1:30 while the main bunch up front of 42 riders got their sustenance. This is the chase, and it's looking a bit disparate, I'm afraid. I kind of feel sorry for them. Back to the cars they go. Everyone just looking for a little bit of, I don't know, peace and respite. This is the front group you're looking at right now. Number 61 here, Gerben Kuipers, alone for Intermarché. They did engage in the chase, but don't know why, because Kuipers is their chosen man, maybe just thinking we could offer up something. Josh Tarling, brilliant, picked himself up off the deck after a crash, which unfortunately has taken Chris Froome and others out of the race. Back to our friendly camels. The camel nets, by the way, at the side of the road here, just to stop the beasts wandering into traffic. And it's good for them, and it's good for the vehicles as well. There's a borderline here as well, with a little bit of no man's land patrolled, which suggests a military facility. We also do cross borders as part of this. Oh gosh, you know, there are heroes in our sport, and one of them is I've got to say, Matt Stevens has just arrived with a par hasard. Thank you, mate. And gently custard accents through the swirl. He knows what he's doing. And golfers as well. Gap pinged down to 1:30, and it stretched back out to 1:54. Basically, the front group had their feed. Jumbo-Visma were having a bit of a narc, saying, come on, everybody, get this together. Nobody did. And so the gaps sweated back out to 2 minutes, and I think it's done.
Yeah, it's certainly looking like it in that short amount of time I was gone. Fair bits have changed, but yeah, this flag to line. We need to be fueled for this big finale. So you enjoy your bit of sustenance as we look at Pello Bilbao. Just leading. You see the way his bike is. I mean, Bilbao's got a slightly interesting style on the bike anyway. He rolls his shoulders ever so slightly, so the front wheel just weaves on the floor. Just look at it. Always does that. That's just his style. Whereas other riders keep their bikes a little bit straight. Reminds me of the style, those of you watching who've been watching cycling for the best part of 30 years, of Pedro Delgado, who also used to just weave that front wheel, a former winner, of course, in the Tour de France back in 1988. A real true Spanish champion. But yeah, everybody rolling through. You can just see leaning into the wind there as we get another look at this arid landscape. And this slightly more reddish sand. We're actually very much on the border of Oman. The top of Jebel Hafid might actually be, I won't cut across you eating your pano raisin, but there's a real difference. When I've been to this race in the past and we loop round and drive back to the hotel, we actually cross the border into Oman and back out again. And the sand is like this. It's far redder. And when you're on the ground, you really do notice it. It's very, very different than the sand just a few kilometres away. There's a stark differential, isn't there?
The difference is that within the redder sand, there is more earth, mud, essentially. And it's where you get terracotta. If you imagine terracotta clay that's cooked, it's orange. And in fact, clay courts in tennis are actually ground down flower pots from that industry, actually. So yeah, the more terracotta it is, generally the more earth it's got in and the less sand. So the more orange it is, the more earth. And what that also means is, if you get some wet weather coming through, it has a more spongy effect on that type of sand. And when it evaporates, you're left with a honeycomb, and that's where you get quicksands and indeed some quite worrying phenomena. You think about Lawrence of Arabia and all the rest of it. You know, that classic Hollywood, just a hand disappearing into the sand. There's always one hand left out in there, isn't there? But yeah, there is actually a defined way of dealing with quicksand. You know that
Spread out.
Yes, exactly. Don't try and stay vertical. You're just going to dig yourself further in. But anyway.
Weirdly, and I'm taking this a step further, I've actually seen people enact it, go into quicksand on purpose,
Yes.
and then use a particular technique to get themselves out. And it's actually, I say straightforward, I certainly wouldn't want to risk it myself, but it's a relatively simple technique. But generally people just panic and do the complete opposite, stay
Yeah.
vertical, and end up getting taken and when suffering a very horrible fate. Anyway, I think that went a little bit dark quite quickly, didn't it? So a man that I don't know what the knowledge of quicksand is from Tim Malia's perspective, but tell you what, that sprint yesterday was incredible, wasn't it? Arrow straight.
Amazing.
That I still can't. We know that he's such a capable rider, but there was another illustration. Not that the day before wasn't, but that was more of a straightforward sprint. But the sprint yesterday, where he took things up on the inside when he found that space, didn't have any lead-out riders with him, lost his lead-out man with about 1,900 metres to go. But when he opened things up, it was so impressive, and just carried it through, straight line, that complex, although it was only a sweeping corner, the way that he took it just meant he could carry so much more speed than everybody else. So it was a real demonstration, raw speed, raw power, but also timing, and doing things a little bit differently and taking the initiative.
There are riders here who are going through the feed zone, and quite frankly, they're just snacking in because with 2 minutes the gap and 49 kilometres to go on a relatively flat road, well, extraordinarily flat road, before we actually get to the big kicker at the end of the day. I think there's an accord now that's settled over everyone. There's an understanding that how this day is going to pan out, there's not really that much opportunity for this gap to be closed. They've tried. It's been, all their moves have been responded to, and I kind of feel sorry for the chase, especially for those like Van Eekveld, defending champion, who really have missed the boat today. He's done a great job, actually, even on a personal level, of making sure that he was marking out Tadej Pogacar's moves, but didn't do so today.
Yeah, it just wasn't to be.
No.
I would imagine just caught a little bit too far back as we look at the onboard camera. And there is Van Eekveld, I think. On the man on the right is Juric. He's dropped back from that front group, unsurprisingly, because that lad has had a very hard week. But he'll be duly rewarded with a trip to the podium atop Jebel Hafid to take a very well-earned black jersey. But no, you're right. There's still a chase behind, but where they're going to find 2 minutes from, I just don't think there's enough firepower, enough teams willing to actually commit. I just don't think they're capable of doing it now. The only thing they can hope for is that they're, for some reason, and it would have to be quite a bizarre one, the group in front completely lost their momentum. But there's so many teams here with a GC contender, with several teammates who are completely invested in so even if a few riders start to sit on, there's a couple of teams, Lidl Trek in particular, Soudal Quickstep, with numbers who can actually keep on riding at the front to make sure that they do hit the bottom of the final climb of the day, the only climb of the day, the iconic Jebel Hafid, with enough in hand. And of course, they will be getting information passed to them as well. So let's say that somehow the gap starts to come down, and it could be a combination of persistence from behind and just taking their foot off the gas in front. All it needs is, look lads, the gap's come down to 1 minute 30. We need a little bit of an injection in pace, and then flat out again for another 5k, and then they bring the gap back up again. And because this group is so big, there's so many riders who will revel in this sort of terrain that it is definitely advantage the group in front. I don't think the lead's going to balloon enormously, but I think it will stay around 2 minutes, maybe even go up to 3 minutes as we approach the climb, or it could just remain the same. I do think the group behind will keep on riding, but I don't think the situation will allow for this gap to go down for too much longer. I just think there's too much strength here, too much potential still in the group, too much reason to want to keep it in front as well.
I'm loving it. We're going to be doing a brief roundup for our wider cycling fraternity in a short while. So you'll forgive us if indeed there's a little bit of lovely repetition of the story so far. So we'll just welcome everybody, shall we? And then we'll be back with you, the loyalists, in a moment. Sign on for the final stage, destination Jabal Hafit. Well, there may well be just over 1,300 metres of altitude gain today, which is less than some of the sprinting days we've had, over the 176 kilometres, but it's all compressed at the back end of the day. And what a day it has been already. Should we check out what we're dealing with? Well, I'll start today. You're thinking, well, quite a modest one. You love a pancake, then iron it and play billiards upon it. That's how flat the day looks. But it's very, very busy as far as the wind is concerned. It's blown up to around 25 kilometres per hour. It's coming in due south. And as you can see, with the wind and weft of our directions today, it means that the wind has a big impact, and it has. That little bounce around a hairpin, by then we had ourselves a feisty breakaway. The chase split in the crosswinds, and indeed some very big names are up front, and some very big names have been trapped. And their ambition being cast aside before we get to the front of the final test today. Jabal Hafit, win on this, you're likely to win the race. Tadej Pogačar knows that, and he's in the front group. There you go, almost a false descent all the way down. You think to that final run today, and this is the spiteful nature of it. 12%, a little bit of a dish going into, we're going downhill bizarrely before we kick up at the very last. Did you sign on earlier on today? The great and the good here and with the job to do, not least those who are in the jerseys. Jonathan Milan wanted to secure that green jersey, the black jersey also up to the four each before we got to the first intermediate sprint after just over 61 kilometres in fact. Back in the race, we had Josh Tarling. He had a technical, so they held it up for him. And then there was a real skirmish to get in the break. Now look at the street furniture, the elevated road dividers. They can catch you out at any point because on a downstroke, some of this paving is very high. You can actually, in fact, catch a pedal. Also, you can actually catch the nose of some of these broken dividers, and that's what we had, unfortunately. Chris Froome hitting the deck hard. Tarling also down there. The likes of Torsten Train involved, I'm afraid. A few others likewise picking themselves up, bruised, battered, not happy. And all of a sudden, we were starting to take account of the early season and the injuries that rained down upon this group. Not nice. Behrens out, as well as Derby decline, really suffering. But honestly, Chris Froome seemed to be of most concern to everybody and is out of the race. We are waiting for news of his injuries, nothing declared as yet. So we had a feisty breakaway that rolled itself off the nose. And in fact it was 12 riders that included the black jersey, by the way, and also the green jersey. So a fighting force that were gunning ultimately for the intermediate sprint. There was a little bit of work rate going on, can we put it that way? Where Bastians, for example, was accusing the black jersey of not doing enough. We came to our first intermediate sprint, and I've got to say that poor old Duric had done so much work, we kind of thought that he needed to be cut a little bit of slack, quite frankly. There was a front group, as we said, the split by the peloton as forming a chase group, which ultimately led everybody from Soudal Quickstep were going to find themselves up towards the front of the absolutely shattered. they would get themselves into a fighting force, including Telly Pocaccia. Finn Fisher-Black was there. Unkindly, we thought, to be honest, by Rob Heiss, who'd been a little bit upset about some of the work rate that had been put in by Dola Duric. Oh, well, there we are. After's here. What on earth were you doing there? Duric giving out, Milan secure in green, Duric now secure in black, and then Breakaway having done its job with the first intermediate. In backup to those who find themselves out front, and the entire lost its heart and drive to try and close down this gap. It's hoving around 2 minutes. We'll get confirmation on that in a short while. We've got one intermediate sprint to come, and of course the big test, Jabal Hafeet itself.
Indeed, the big rendezvous. There's the bunch behind. 2 minutes and 1 second, so that, again, not much has changed over the last few Ks. The peloton have maintained roughly the same speed, pretty much the same speed, should I say, as the group out in front. But yeah, we are way ahead of schedule, and we have got a ridiculously high average speed. We're heading into a headwind now, so it's a headwind all the way to the bottom of Jabal Hafeet. We hit the final intermediate sprint of the day that has, remember, this group's together now, so there are 3, 2, 1 bonus seconds on offer, as well as points towards the black jersey competition. With that competition, as well as the green jersey competition, done and dusted in terms of the winners, only the minor placings still up for grabs. So it'll be interesting to see who, and if anybody from that group goes for the sprint. But with only 39 Ks to go, yeah, the average speed, 49.9 Ks an hour. It has been a sensational day's racing. The chains have been tight, no piano at all, just full throttle crosswind racing, and a GC battle to follow.
No piano. Plenty of banjolin. I love a banjolin.
What's a banjolin? Never heard of a banjolin.
It's a cross between a banjo and a mandolin. Is it Al Bybee? Is the absolute god of it. Listen to some Al Bybee in the Blue Room. Unbelievable.
It's kind of bluegrassy.
Very much.
Yeah.
Very much.
It sounds like it's a homemade instrument.
It's a shorter version of a banjo and a mandolin mixed.
So it's quite a high-pitched sound.
It's wonderful. You'll go crazy.
I'm a big fan of a stringed instrument.
That's why he's so good at conkers. 38. You know what? It's very occasionally I get the open-handed acclamation of a comment. I've just had one for the conker comment.
Yeah, but that's when I have to mic off. That's basically how that works.
It's Jay Vine. Tash-tastic as he is, he's got a little bit of a smirk about him today. A much easier day for him than perhaps he'd hoped for.
Yeah, I think deep down he's going to be a little bit disappointed. But we saw from the highlights of just a few moments ago a reminder of how quick they were going on that crosswind section, on that little loop that we did before the first intermediate sprint, which ultimately saw the formation of this group. Josh Tarling made it, but there are several riders that just didn't have the raw power to get across. And quite clearly, although we know Jay Vine is an exceptionally strong rider, it just looks to me as if he was out of position. But so were a number of other key riders, including last year's winner, Leonard Van Aert. He's going to be disappointed. But Jay Vine, not so much for his own overall aspirations, because it's all about Tadej Pogačar, but the fact he's not there to help out his teammate, he'll be disappointed with that. But there you go, that's racing sometimes. You can't be there all of the time. But not so much a lesson learned, it was put in the gutter by some of the strongest riders in the world. And what we saw was some of the big sprinters basically sprinting flat out. And then the riders behind who can't generate that sort of power are left in the wind. And it's just inevitable. That's why it's so devastating, and that's why it's a reminder of being in the right position. And that's why one of the best teams historically, and clearly right now doing that right, is Soudal Quickstep. They've got every single rider here, but they were all around Jonas Lesurf, who's the smallest rider in this front group. He was on the fringes of about 15th or 16th overall coming into today. And now has a real opportunity of vaulting up into the top 10. But he was so well looked after and almost kept in a vacuum. But I tell you what, he would have had to have ridden disproportionately harder than the heavier men around him. So all credit to him. So there are some of the purer climbers, the lighter riders who've made it into this front group, but some unfortunately haven't. But still, Tadej Pogačar does have two new teammates within the company in the form of Herringotts and Vermeers, who I'm sure will look after him, but they perhaps won't be able to go as deep. Well, not perhaps, they won't be able to go quite as deep into the climb as Jay Vine.
Very much so. But you know, it's if anything, cycling, and certainly the strategy you have every single day of it, they need to be flexible. You need to have several plans that you can invoke. You've got to be able to adapt.
Totally.
Welcome back, those of you who've been away. You know, the UE Tour has been absolutely amazing this year. Quite often, some of the early season races, you kind of think to yourself, well, it might be a ride-in for a few. Just a testing, probing, really, of your own form coming out of winter. This has been phenomenal racing every day.
It's been brilliant. There's been a little bit of everything. Over the last few years, we've had a real balance to this race in terms of the parkour. Always multiple opportunities for sprinters. Normally 4 stages for the sprinters. We had 4 this year, but one had a bit of a kick up at the end, a real sting in the tail with a 7-8% climb to the line for the last kilometre or so. But it was still the sprinter that took down Jonathan Milan. We've had a TT, we've had our first mountain top finish. There's been a bit of everything, but then there's been the subplot. There's no King of the Mountains classification in this race, but there has been a very exciting hotspot sprint classification, which has been keenly fought between Team Solution Tech and the Group Bardiani. The Bardiani rider that's been the most active was, of course, Tarozzi, the winner ultimately Juric. But that's given us a wonderful subplot. And then, of course, there's been the brilliant bunch sprints that we've had. There's been the emergence of Josh Tarling. What a climb he did on the first mountain top finish. He still sits in second place overall. He's the only Ineos Grenadier. So there's been a lot of individual stories. But save for yesterday, which was the calmest of the days, we've had action-packed days on a variety of different terrains every single stage.
Romeo, where for art thou, Romeo? He's here. He's in the front group as well. Could be a big day.
Yeah, yesterday, Josh Tarling said you are a better climber than he is. Do you agree with him?
I don't know. Let's see today. He's a better time trialist, that I'm sure. So I hope I'm a better climber. So I can pass him on the GC today. But let's see. Now he's riding super well this week, and let's see what happens today.
what are your hopes today? Podium finish, the overall win, best young rider, team winner?
Everything. I mean, I only understand racing if I try to win. That's my mentality always since I'm a kid. So no, I will do my best. I'm in a good shape. I have a super good team with me here, so we go for everything. Obviously, with today it's almost impossible to win, but we will try to keep that podium spot.
Are you saying that there are two races, Tadej Pogacar's race and everyone else's race?
I think so, yeah, to be honest.
Clearly happy at Movistar, and I think Josh Tarling is right. I know Josh Tarling will fight all the way, especially given the situation on the road. He's the only one of his team in the mix. There's a few riders directly behind him on the GC that now aren't there that have fallen away. So realistically, Josh Tarling is looking at a pretty high place on the GC, maybe not quite at the podium, as we look back at some of the sprints from earlier on. This is the opening intermediate sprint today taken by Jonathan Milan. But no, I think I would agree with Tarling, but what we've got to watch out for is how deep Tarling can go. But I think of the two, head-to-head on a climb such as this, with the gradients we're talking about, the vast majority of the climb is actually 8%, pretty punchy. I think Romeo should come out on top. But also the insight he gave, it seems like a really mature young man. You know, saying it's all going to be about the crosswinds as well, which it has. We've got that first selection, key selection, which has been made, and also he said, I hope you guys are entertained at home, and we have been. It's been a brilliant race so far. Settling down now as we get ever nearer, as we head ever further south to the border of Oman. And the fearsome climb of Jebel Afit awaits in about half an hour's time, maybe a little bit less now.
Yeah, I think we're going to rush into the foot of it. That's for sure. What have we got, about 18 kilometres to go before we actually get to the two? Intermediate sprint almost announces it. We drag up through the second intermediate, and then, of course, we deliver to home.
Right, 19k to the sprint, roughly.
Yeah, it'll be at just shy of 14 kilometres remaining, so there you are. This is how the sprint went, intermediate, with Milan taking 8 points, Rob Heiss with 5, Senko 3. Duric, what happened here? He got relegated from the sprint.
That looks like he has been relegated.
Yeah, so he was blamed for the contact with Rob Heiss. It's the lean back. Heiss, to me, did the main lateral movement there.
From what I've seen,
I
know there was a definite reaction. Duric still won it. It's irrelevant really, but he's been relegated. I thought there might be, I thought something would come of that movement, that interaction between the riders. I would have said it was kind of 50-50, but the rider that instigated it for me was Heiss, but the jury have decided otherwise. There we go. But ultimately, Duric has won it. But maybe he shouldn't have reacted the way he did. He did sort of knock him back, and maybe that. So the deviation was one thing, but to physically rub against another rider, bump into another rider, is actually probably a retaliation too far.
They've taken 2 points of him.
It's deducted, so he's got 46. Yeah. So he's still the outright winner. He'd probably get a yellow card as well for that. He's used yellow cards. One rider that did get relegated yesterday got a yellow card. His second of the race was Danny Van Poppel, was relegated from 8th place yesterday. So he might get a yellow card for that as well.
Wouldn't surprise me. But I feel for him. But he has got black chest.
Yeah, he's got the black chest.
The oldest university in the UAE was established in 1976, just as the Sex Pistols released their album. Its alumni have provided ministers, diplomats, senior government officials, and no punk bands, as far as I can go.
I'm not aware of any.
I mean, we might be wrong.
We might be wrong.
I don't know what they'd be called. But anyway.
It's a great building, isn't it? I did like that building, quite dynamic. Considering that, I wonder if that was the original building from '76 or they built something different on the same site. but another quite remarkable structure.
Indeed. Yes. Well, we've gone Grupo Sportivo today, haven't we? To keep the illusion going. Great punk band from the Netherlands. Yes. Don't know if you're aware of them.
I'm not.
One of the first posters I ever managed to rip off a hoarding cleanly and take home.
All right.
That never happens, does
They
it?
normally tear, don't they?
They do, but not that one.
Have you still got it?
Sadly, I've been looking for it. I just cannot find it. It was wonderful as well. Bright orange and black it was.
They're quite sought after. Movie posters and concert posters from back in the day. They're collector's items.
And I've got to tell you that the Grupo Sportivo in the Netherlands is regarded with great homage as being a definitive of the genre. Anyway, back to this. 29 kilometres to go. We've had Alan Bidey, the Blue Room. May I highly recommend it to you if you want to hear the banjolin. And it's spectacular. It picks you up on any day.
It does. Well, we've got a few rods from Team Jacob Lewin in front. Actually talking about stringed instruments. He's not racing here, but a new signing for the Aussie squad is Paul Double. Lovely lad.
Ah, yeah.
Met him on a few occasions. On his Instagram, most of his posts are him playing the guitar. Check him out.
There you go. Paul and the double. Exactly.
Great rider. Again, not in this race, but really good sign. But a good guitarist. So check him out on Instagram if you are so inclined.
Meanwhile, the weave and weft of our peloton here, a tapestry of delight for those who love a bit of GC action, and that's what we're going to get.
Yeah, they're heading pretty much due south now. We're heading southeast, but mostly in a southerly direction before they hit this town where they need to be the sprinters. So pretty much a straight line now into a nagging headwind, a nagging head crosswind. Lead holding steady at around 2 minutes till they found a few more seconds as Ryan Mullen hits the front. Danny Van Poppel there as well. And they've got good numbers in this group looking after Finn Fisher Black. He's going to be keen on trying to, well, he's going to try and win this bike race, of course he is. I think he's going to ride completely unafraid. But what he won't want to do is ride recklessly and lose any chance of a podium spot. So they're all in for Finn Fisher Black to maybe take a surprise win, but at the very least secure a place on the podium. I think that's what realistically he can be looking at now. But with this headwind climb that we talked about a little while ago, it's not going to be as simple as maybe we think, although the out-and-out favourite still remains to be the man in red.
Welcome back, everybody. Steve Lennon, riding on Twister, really loving the desert experience. You quoted me, tickled the camel's head. Yeah, well, I have. If you spool back, you'll find out the conversation. Yes, apparently Steve was worked for Strata Manufacturing, we've also visited today. This looks like a shooting and a golf club. I don't know, can you combine those two?
They clearly have here.
Take care, everybody. Yeah, a hole-in-one, possibly used for the shooting. Anyways, a 3,000-metre international standard horse race track. They have to say that because it's going to be a camel race track.
Could be camels.
Yes. Nowadays, by the way, remote-controlled camel racing. Well, they used to have very, very, very small jockeys, which were, in fact, usually small children that were given the opportunity of racing camels in this part of the world. And these days, due to indeed various reasons, they now do it with
Dummies.
robots, which can actually issue the little cane that the kids used to wield to control the camels. Anyway, there you go.
I mean, I know it's probably sensible from a health and safety perspective and from a child labour perspective, but it's taken the edge off for me.
A looming Jebel Hafiz is so yeah, it is otherworldly when you're out here, especially if the wind has been blowing and you've got a little bit of the dust in the air. You can see it here, that sort of orangey haze. It's not smog, it's dust from the wind that we've had. Here's your man who got relegated he got relegated from the intermediate sprint, had 2 points taken off him. because of a little bit of shoulderage with Rob Heiss, who's slewed across the road and taken into the barriers. I think it was a bit 50-50. Sorry, Rob, but that's my view. But anyway, he still, does Dola Duric, has the black jersey, and thank heaven for that. Here we go, Pale Barrows. Let's go back to the car himself. He's got no water carriers. All this water is for him.
It is. Doesn't need to dole it out, but he does need to drop back. He's also got one of those little ice packs, ice in a pair of tights, basically, which a lot of you, of course, will be totally familiar with, and making sure he cools himself down, because this is the hottest day of the race so far.
33 Celsius it is at the moment. How it was nudging 35. Can you believe it?
Yeah, it's really, really warm. And that wind is still blowing, just double checking my wind app. It's still blowing from the south to the north, but 33 degrees.
And coming off the desert,
and coming off the desert, right in the centre of the desert, blowing straight through Al Ain, which they've been back through. So they've just passed through Al Ain again, and now they're heading south, heading towards the intermediate sprint, which is going to come around very quickly. And because of the speed, the speed is still above 50 kilometres an hour today. That will be knocked back once we hit the climb.
The headwind as well.
Yeah, and with that headwind, it'll take it down. But despite there being a 25k an hour headwind, just look at how much pace there is. Mullen on the front. This is a man that can deliver long pulls on the front at a high pace. Then this is Ida Schelling coming through. A very good climber, in fact. Lost a bit of time on the GC, but he's going to be a very important rider for Harold Tejada of XDS Astana. They've got 3 riders in this front group, so good riding by the Astana squad. But the men who've played so far an absolute blinder, and on the front is Casper Pedersen, really injecting some proper pace. Soudal Quickstep have absolutely nailed it today, haven't they? Stuck it in the gutter, along with primarily Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe and also Team Jayco Alula with Max Valscheid. And they're still continuing to ride, because they have a good chance of putting their young Belgian protege up deep into the top 10. And there is the climb, just looming. You look really closely.
Yeah,
there it is, directly in front.
It's not a cloud.
It's not a cloud. It is a rather big lump of rock.
Oh, it really is a spectacular sight.
It's amazing from the top, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly, and it's so tall. You think it's actually nearer than it actually is. We've still got a way to go before we get there. It really defines the landscape here. Of course, the rest of the landscape used to be at that level and has been whittled away by the wind, leaving us with this amazing edifice, which is just looks like it's been thrown up out of the earth. But in fact, everything was level with the top of it at one time, and is now gone.
Blimey, that is amazing, isn't it? That really is. Now, if you're ever in this neck of the woods, I've been here a few times. Just the view from the top is something else. It really, really is. You can see for absolute miles. It's an impressive, desolate, stark, yet quite beautiful place.
And an Englishman in a spin says, you two, you peas in a pod, said, come from the school of knowing stuff.
We know bits. We do know bits. We've been around a bit, but our collective age is triple figures. Let's be honest. So let's be clear there. So we've accumulated.
We've been around the block
some random facts.
More than a couple of times.
We've accumulated some random facts over the years.
We know how to calm an antsy camel. This man, I'm afraid, Lenny van Eetveld, he let it get away from him, didn't he? He had his feet in the stirrups, but the reins had gone. And I'm afraid that he didn't mark out the move of Tony Pogacar and others, and has found himself, he doesn't want the camera around, he's found himself in the group that isn't.
It's a really difficult one. His team is still riding on the front to try and mitigate. Tudor Pro Cycling are there as well. Team Picnic won't. That's just Jakobsen, Fabio Jakobsen, just blocking really, because they've got their leader, who I think is going to do a cool run of rides there. I really feel that Oscar Onley could do something quite special today. He sits in 10th. Very good climber, finished off, can sprint well as well from the group. So in terms of time bonuses on offer, let's assume, and I know we shouldn't, but we'll almost have to, unless something extraordinary happens, Tadej Pogacar should win this one. It's difficult to see past him, and actually predicting anything else I think is folly. The only thing that can derail Tadej Pogacar is bad luck. But what Oscar Onley has is a real burst of pace at the end, and can function well on a climb like this, as we see that very man on the front now. He'll be feeling confident. When isn't he confident? But still that chase from behind is drifting out now to 2:47. But yeah, but he'll learn. He's only a young rider. He burst onto the scene. He can't get everything right, you know. It's and we saw how hard that was. He will be disappointed. There will be a little bit of a debrief. But he's still very young, still only 23 years of age. Has got a lot to learn, and today was a big learning curve. I'm sure he'll be able to pick up a few places on the climb. So that's why they're continuing to ride, is to try and mitigate. Because I would say 80% of this group will probably fall back, because it's mostly sprinters and rouleurs as well as GC riders who are investing now. They'll pull the pin on the climb. Those that don't ride deeply into the as deep into the climb as they can. So there is a chance to salvage a top 10 spot for some of the riders here, because the vast majority in this group, despite having nearly 3 minutes by the bottom, won't sustain that pace on the climb itself, and that's why they're continuing to ride behind. Out of respect for the race as well.
Yeah.
So fair play for Lotto. The heads aren't bowed, they're doing what they can, they've missed out, but they'll learn to move on, and then there'll be other success, but unfortunately today, it's eluded him.
Fredo, you'd be a fly on the wall, wouldn't you, that debrief at the end of today, what went wrong? I mean, you could say he deserves to hold on to his briefs. He's got an awful lot, of course, ahead of him in terms of his career. He's a brilliant rider, defending champion here. Just missed it today. These things happen.
Yeah, exactly. It does happen, and he does look a little bit frustrated and disappointed. The thing is, he's got good legs, but he's in the wrong place when the hammer goes down in some of the most. I think it's fair to say, even when you compare, there's a lot of comparisons between racing. He's chipper, he is chipper, isn't he?
80 to 1 at the beginning of the day, Mr. Romero. Well, if he gets the podium today, he's going to cause a couple of curly smiles. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
He's got a wonderful grin himself, and he's very free with his emotions.
We're getting to know Ivan Romeo very well now, and he's there you go. There's some information. Josh Tolling and Ivan Romeo, second and third in the GC. 21?
Yeah, exactly. Could become the youngest winner of the UAE Tour. That's a tall order. But yeah, to win the tour, I think is a tall order. But nonetheless, at the moment, Tadej Pogačar won it at 22 years and 5 months and 6 days in 2021. You forget just how young he is and how much still lies ahead of him.
Yeah, he's incredible, isn't he? Yeah. He really is an absolute cycling phenomenon. A rare physical specimen. The sort of just what he can sustain, what he can do, his versatility, his tolerance. He is a different sort of level, and that's been widely acknowledged by all of his peers. He really is something quite special. This man's just having fun. There you go. I think the man in front, of course, is Tadej Pogačar. I think he could do with a bungee to latch on and maybe haul himself up the vast majority of the climb. That's what he'd like. But he's going to relish the opportunity to go toe-to-toe with Tadej Pogačar and the rest. It's going to be a proper battle for the other placings on the podium. Like I said, unless something extraordinary happens to Tadej Pogačar, the likes of Finn Fisher-Black, these young bucks coming up through the ranks over the last couple of years, have now been given a real opportunity to do something pretty special today. And right now, Romeo looks like he's riding without any pressure at all. He can just get out there, go as deep as he can, have fun, and race his bike.
Let's do this, shall we? Under 20k to go. The green Mubazara, by the way, is coming up. It's a strange. It's a little like spa. Activity holiday resort at the foot of the mountain. Scenic chalets and luxurious accommodations, hot springs, waterfalls, lush green hillsides, and a wave machine. Blimey, I know, strange. Ideal retreat for those seeking relaxation away from the city. And to be honest, you're so close to the mountain itself. We've often spoken about the lack of light pollution in this part of the world as well at night. Let's dwell on Ciccone, shall we, for a moment. 6 spots, but, might do some damage today. Somebody else who would get on the podium. I'm not sure he's on the same kind of form as a few of those around him, but we'll find out today. He's very articulate, this Ciccone, and he's well backed up in this group now.
Yeah, he's got great teammates with him, and they will ride as deep as they can. And importantly, he's got Patrick Conrad, exactly. So Patrick Conrad is the rider that one would imagine, based on what we know about Patrick Conrad, will go very deep into the climb and look after Ciccone. But we haven't had a test quite like this. The previous mountaintop finish was a completely different affair in terms of gradient, 5-6% maximum. A climb that saw Josh Tarling finish just off the back of that group. But this is more of a pure climber's climb. So I think it will suit Giulio Ciccone far more. And as we know, he is a man that can deliver a real kick at the finish as well. So Ciccone's on that podium. He's been quiet, but he's there. He's lurking. He's looking good. And Legal Trek have ably backed him up. And what I love to see is riders like Milan. He's got two stage wins, goes, secures the jersey, and has now flicked the switch and is riding in the service of his teammate. That's what I love about bike racing. Dan Hall has been great to be there as well. So that versatility and the way that riders can change their strategy, their objectives midway through the race. There's a certain set of objectives first for Milan to secure the green jersey. That's the job now. Now it's about looking after Giulio Ciccone to see what they can get out of this stage.
Alejandro Valverde, when he won in 2019, he also won in 2018, by the way, when it was the Tour of Dubai. He won in a sprint, a very select group up towards the front. That was a great day. Yeah, Ciccone, he may well guide himself into a spectacular position because he's well backed up in this one. I like Ciccone. He's actually got a very, very defined cleft chin. It looks like he plays a lot of snooker. You know, it's like a cue guide. That's how low he gets. And he's going to go high in a few moments' time. I know, it's just my mind. I have to live with it. 17.1 kilometres from home. We're nearly at our intermediate sprint. Matt's given up. He's left. Come back, Matt. 3 minutes. It really has been a chase to nowhere, hasn't it, for some very big names.
I'll tell you what, I'm wondering if Samudio might give one of these a nudge to get himself into second place in their hotspot sprints.
Here we go. Intermediate sprint is rocking into our consciousness. It will announce the foot of our climb. The sprint is at the green Mubazara. Now that is a little hot springs at the foot of the mount. Maybe get some tectonic action. You of course have fracturing of the Earth's core and hot springs, and that's what we're dealing with. I don't know whether it's going to be on display, but their pool did have a wave machine, which is a strange thing to find in the middle of the desert. But anyway, I cannot wait to see if somebody is on an inflatable donut having fun in the surf at the bottom of the mountain in the middle of a desert.
Now, you know, sometimes the human brain is an amazing thing where all it needs is some sort of spark to set off a memory that you'd never ever believe that you'd had. But now you say that, I can remember from commentating on this race a few times, we've had some aerial shots of people doing exactly that. So I have a funny feeling we may see some action.
I see the world in pictures. It's it's the way that dyslexics work, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing if my memory serves me well. I want to see people having fun on inflatables. Let's wait and see. 1,700 metres before we get to this intermediate sprint.
I wonder who's going to go for this. Is Milan might. I mean, there are 3 2 seconds on offer here, and when you look at how close, like Oscar Onley needs 3 seconds to draw level with Tejada. Tejada needs 3 seconds to move up 2 spots overall. Bilbao needs 3 seconds, and he'll vault up 2 places overall. If Finn Fisher-Black wins it, he vaults above Ivan Romeo on the GC. So this could be quite an interesting little sprint. It really could.
Well, if you think that you might be diminished when you get to the climb, then have a little squirrel right now. Don't be surprised if Tadej Pogačar nips up for a couple of seconds here just to make sure that everyone knows what the pecking order is.
You never know. I kind of doubt it, but I just do not know. I do not know. But if he did it, you'd be yes, and if he didn't, you'd be like yes. Nothing.
Oh,
really.
You're right. Samudio's moving up.
Samudio's definitely moving up. He can secure second place. At the moment, he's on 33 points,
way
equal
back
with
the kilometres to go.
Tarozzi. But if he moves up steadily and there's not too much action from behind, he might nab it. But watch out for Oscar Onley as well. Onley, as you say, it might be worth investing a bit in a sprint at the bottom of the climb.
There's Samudio.
Just before. There's probably enough road to recover again, but we'll see.
Samudio is just moving up the centre of the road here, as near to it as he can, and the Dayglow sleeves And here he comes. He's coming up to Milan as if to say, "Are you going to go for this, or do you mind if I have a dig?"
He might, because of the hierarchy, he might actually look at us and, "Do you mind if I sprint?"
Yeah.
But he can't. Of course, he's allowed to. But sometimes just that little nod to like, "Okay, you're going to sprint, fine." There is still a hierarchy in the peloton, especially amongst from the World Tour teams to the smaller teams. So Samudio might just look across, give him a nod. Here we go.
And it's Milan who's leading out Samudio. This is really nice. Come on, fella, what are you up to? He said, "I want second place in the black jersey competition." We've already been knocked back 2 points on the first one. Black jersey is just over by the privet hedges, which look like bus used to do. But anyway. He said, "Look here, you're going to beat Milan."
This is a green jersey. It's Malia.
It is. Malia, the European champions, popped out as well. And Samudio. That was nice. Green jersey of Jonathan Milan takes it, and just adding to his points tally there was Tim Malia of Sudol Quickstep. Samudio, I think, has done enough to move into second place of the black jersey.
Oh, totally. He's now taken himself up to 38. I tell you what, though, Samudio did exactly the right thing. Got to win the Milan. But did you see the way that Milan was sprinting at like 80%?
Yeah.
He was just looking at him, just like controlling the. It's just so impressive. I mean, Samudio's got a right kick on it.
Yeah.
He's a punchy little rider. But the differential in power there was just overwhelming. It really was. He just rode it at like 80%.
Malia comes through. Jonathan Milan looks over the thing. Waiting for a bit of the bounce. Malia, absolutely dead cold, comes through. Mind on the road. He wanted some points for himself, to be honest.
Yeah.
Just to sort of make sure that everyone knows.
Well, he's trying to. I mean, it was an interesting one because he can't vault over Milan unless he has a spectacular climb. Well, he can't. Yes, he can if he won the stage, but that's not going to happen. But I think it might be just to secure maybe second place.
Yeah.
The thing is, there are monetary prizes on offer here, and all these prizes get split between the teams, and they also get split between the staff. So if there's an opportunity to win another couple of €1,000, you're going to go for it because it gets distributed amongst the team. So just thoughtful, professional riding there for Malia. It may look like a trivial detail, but if that secures second place in the points jersey classification, that's a few more quid in the bin for the staff at Sudol Quickstep.
Jump on our feet. Ahead of us. Head and feet. And of course we have this green Mubazara. We want to see the wave machine still working. It's become almost an essential part of our day.
It has. Not seen it yet. We might be missing out here. Jonathan Milan, by the looks of it, has actually pulled the pin and gone back. Ryan Mullen. Oh, no, it's not Ryan Mullen. Is that Mullen? No, that's Sam Welsford. Just to say, they've committed a lot. They know that the day is done. So this group will thin out very quickly as riders who've done a big job already just pull the pin. There's another rider there just dropping back. Because this doesn't look like much, but this is a little 4% climb that takes us to the foot of the climb itself. So it's actually a nasty drag. They don't carry that much momentum into the climb itself.
I think discretion is a great form of valor. It looks like we've left those who are in the swimming pool to their own devices.
Indeed. Well, maybe next year.
Yeah.
Maybe next year.
3 minutes 9 back to the Lenny Van Eetveld defending champions group. And so it will be these up front that are going to contest the day and indeed sort out the title. So, of those who can be a big feature today, of course, Teddy Pogacar, of course, Oscar Oni was runner-up to him on Jabal Jais. Don't start looking for the likes of Gall, he's not here. Ciccone is, though. Ciccone will be a feature. Ivan Romeo, we have Peo Bilbao, Josh Tarling's in the frame, Harold Tejeda as well. Let's do this.
Indeed. We're nearly there. 1.2k to the foot of the climb. Just some stats for you, if you're not familiar with this one. And even if you are familiar, you might want a reminder. It is 10.8 kilometres, 10.3 kilometres in length, elevation of 713 metres, average gradient at 6.6. But it's shallow at the bottom and shallow at the top. If the bulk of it is 8%.
We'll be smacking into ramps of 12% along the average of 8 along the run here. It's actually the declared average is 6.6, but that accounts for a little downhill section just with about 500 metres.